Chapter 389. It's useful. Everyone's fear was swept away, and their eyes were filled with excitement. In the past, they had to use countless talismans to expel the yin qi. But just now, they had just circulated their spiritual qi, and they could not feel it at all. With spirit qi protecting your body, ghosts and spirits won't be able to harm you. Lone Moon explained, as long as you release your spirit qi, those remnant souls won't be able to hurt you. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone became even more excited. In the next moment, the huge group of remnant souls was already flying towards them. Along with a series of shrill ghost cries, a group of inky black things surged toward them. One could even faintly see a terrifying shadow within them. Looking at the number of remnant souls, it seemed to be even more than the previous wave of attacks. I Ching frowned and stepped forward, about to conjure a seal. Wait! Lone Moon suddenly pulled him back and turned to face Yin Heng. Let him come. Yin Heng paused. Even the golden light of merit on his body shook. His eyes widened in disbelief. Did he hear wrongly? Yes. Lone Moon nodded. Since they were going to advertise, they naturally had to find someone to support them. Didn't I teach you about the reincarnation array? The corner of Yin Heng's mouth twitched. But you just taught me yesterday. He had not even started practicing. Did he have to be so fast? All the best. Lone Moon patted him on the shoulder. You have the highest cultivation level out of everyone here. I have high hopes for you. Are you sure you're not trying to trick me? Those remnant souls had already pounced over, and the light around them was instantly swallowed up. It was as if they were immersed in ink, and a series of ear-piercing ghost cries cut through their eardrums like knives. The hearts of all the disciples tightened, but they found that there was no damage to their bodies. It was just as Lone Moon had said, with the protection of spirit qi, ghosts and spirits could not invade. Yin Heng gritted his teeth. He had no choice but to bite the bullet. Recalling the spell that Lone Moon had taught her yesterday, she used all the spirit qi in her body to form a seal and recited a series of complicated spells. In an instant, a golden light flashed in his hand, and a familiar formation appeared under his feet. However, it only flashed for a moment before disappearing again. Yin Heng took a deep breath, conjured another seal, and recited once more. However, just like the last time, the array formation collapsed as soon as it appeared. He tried 4 to 5 times without success, and his forehead was covered in sweat. Maintain the balance of the formation's spirit qi. I Ching couldn't stand it anymore and reminded her. If they wasted any more time, they wouldn't be able to make it back in time to make dinner for Master. Yin Heng paused. His eyes brightened as if he had figured something out. Thank you, exalted Master, for your guidance. Then he took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began to visualize the formation in his mind. Then he circulated his spiritual qi and began to form hand seals inch by inch, chanting an incantation. The next moment, the formation finally took shape, and it grew larger and larger. In just a short while, it had spread to everyone's feet. The yin qi in the surroundings dissipated, and the phantoms that had been attacking everyone slowly calmed down, turning back into white, transparent figures. Their expressions also became serene. A moment later, it turned into wisps of green smoke and disappeared. After all, Yin Heng was only a soul formation cultivator. Naturally, his spirit power could not compare to I Ching's. In addition, there were more remnant souls this time around. He had to divide them 6 times before he could send all the remnant souls into the river of forgetfulness. Since it was his first time setting up an array, and he wasn't very familiar with the control of his spiritual energy, he had almost used up all the spiritual energy in his body after just a few large-scale reincarnation arrays. He placed his hands on his knees and took a few deep breaths. But his expression was one of excitement that he had never shown before. He even looked like he wanted to do it again. For the first time, he understood that remnant souls could be handled like this. It was different from the heavy and repressed feeling he had when he saw mystic cultivators dealing with deviant ghosts in the past. This time, he could clearly feel that those remnant souls had really returned to where they belonged. Even though his spiritual energy was almost depleted, he felt a sense of satisfaction and peace of mind that he had never felt before. It was as if he was not watching the remnant souls disappear, but witnessing their rebirth. This was the true rebirth. The other disciples also looked excited and in disbelief. Looking at the surroundings that had brightened up again, their eyes were filled with starlight. In the past, hundreds or even thousands of mystic cultivators were needed to deal with deviant ghosts. Now, only one person was needed. What's more, in less than 5 minutes, they were completely dealt with without any casualties. So the so-called cultivators were this powerful. If they continued to cultivate like this, they would not have to worry about not dealing with deviant ghosts. World peace was just around the corner. In fact, perhaps it was not impossible to ascend to immortality that the exalted masters talked about. For a moment, all the disciples present were silent in the shock just now. But Lone Moon frowned. He turned to look at the north, which was still filled with Qi. Over there, go back? I Ching asked. Then he added, it's night. I'm going back to cook. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. You make it sound like you did not prepare food for a certain foodie. He took out the small wooden boat from just now and threw it into the air. With a spell in his hand, it turned into a huge spirit boat. Everyone get on the boat. Let's go back. Yes, exalted master. Everyone answered respectfully. Then, they walked towards the spirit boat excitedly. I Ching was about to get on the boat too. Suddenly, he felt a chill behind him. A wind blew past his ears. He was startled, and a sword Qi slashed behind him. In the next moment, there was a loud bang. A crack appeared on the ground instantly, but it did not hit anything. In an instant, a gray aura filled the sky. It rushed towards the people on the spirit boat with a violent aura. Grievance. Lone Moon was shocked. Their spirit Qi could block the Qi, but it could not block the grievance. Seeing that the grievance was about to swallow them up, an array formed in his hand. A golden light enveloped everyone on the spirit boat, blocking the grievance that filled the sky. Heaven Master Yun Hung, a disciple on the boat, suddenly cried out. Lone Moon's heart sank. He turned and realized that Yun Hung had not gotten on the boat yet, and the grievance had completely wrapped him up. He waved his hand, and a sword Qi flew in that direction. His original intention was to disperse the grievance. But before the sword Qi landed, the grievance suddenly disappeared, along with Yun Hung, who was inside. What happened? Where did he go? Over there. I Ching turned to look towards the north. He immediately rode on his sword and chased after him. Lone Moon frowned. Once again, he strengthened a few layers of array formations around the spirit boat. We're going to save people. You guys go back first. With that said, he waved his hand. The entire spirit boat flew up and flew in the direction of the sect. He summoned his spirit sword. Just as he was about to ride on his sword to chase after I Ching, a red light suddenly lit up beside him. Something trembled at his waist. It was the transmission talisman he had left for Cu. He quickly took it out and sent a bit of spirit Qi into it. In the next moment, Cu's image appeared above the talisman, her face full of anxiety. Elder Lone Moon, bad news. Sect Master is missing. What? W. Chapter 390. What's going on? Lone Moon's expression was one of rage. Indeed, they would get lost the moment they were not looking. Didn't I tell you to keep an eye on that person with no sense of direction? What did you do? No. Cu became even more anxious. We were indeed keeping an eye on Sect Master. But Sect Master just disappeared right in front of our eyes. Disappeared? He frowned. After a long while, he said, all right, I got it. Keep an eye on the disciples in the sect. Chef and I will be back in a while. Yes. Lone Moon put away the transmission talisman. His frown deepened. Although Shanning was not reliable, she could not have left on her own after promising them to stay put. What's more, Cu's words suggested that something must have happened to her. Lone Moon pondered for a moment and hurriedly rode his sword in the direction of Chef. Chef did not go far. In less than a quarter of an hour, he saw Shanning. Yun Hung, who had disappeared into the grievous aura, was also intercepted by him. He was now setting up a sword array to trap the grievous aura that was trying to escape. He seemed to want to dispel the grievous aura and was casting a spell. Chef. Lone Moon hurriedly landed and said. Shunning disappeared. What? I Ching turned around abruptly. Sword intent exploded from his body. Even the spirit sword that had been well controlled in the air fell with a swoosh. Oh! The person who had just been wrapped in resentment let out a pained cry as he was struck by the sword, which directly stabbed into his leg. The resentment that could not be dispersed for a long time was instantly sliced clean by the soaring sword chi. Yun Hung, who was in so much pain that he was gasping for breath. Ow, 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 ow. What's wrong with Master? I Ching asked Lone Moon anxiously. I'm not sure yet. C said that she suddenly disappeared in front of us. Lone Moon shook his head. I Ching's expression darkened. His entire body was filled with cold chi. Why was there always a little bitch trying to steal Master from him? Let's go back. With that, he mounted his sword. Wait. Lone Moon pulled him back. Don't rush. You know Shunning. If she doesn't want to, no one can move her. She disappeared in such a strange manner. The only possibility is that she discovered something. I Ching frowned. He calmed down and thought for a moment before saying, the only strange thing about this realm are those deviant ghosts. Could it be that Master's disappearance has something to do with them? Lone Moon also thought of this point. The remnant souls in this small world are indeed shocking. Father Nyo, Master has a communication talisman on her. Can you contact her? Even a communication amulet won't work on her with that shielding attribute of hers. It's not like I haven't tried it before. Any communication amulet. Wait. He suddenly thought of something and looked at the wristband on his hand. His eyes lit up. I remember that there's a work report function in this wristband. I can contact the manager directly. As he spoke, he immediately tapped on the wristband on his wrist. At least he did not waste a month of reading the user manual. A moment later, a light screen popped up. Shunning, who was sitting on something and eating snacks like a hamster, appeared on the light screen. I Ching, Lone Moon, sure enough, his worries were unnecessary. Chef, Father Nyo? Shun Ying's hand paused. She stuffed the last piece of snack in her mouth and then clapped her hands. Why is it you guys? The communication device suddenly rang. She was shocked. She thought it was Big Sis. Master, are you all right? I Ching asked anxiously. I'm fine. She tilted her head. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Where are you? He looked closely around her, but could only see a patch of gray. He could not tell where she was. I don't know. Shunning shook her head. I've never been to this place. Stay where you are and don't move. We'll come and find you immediately. Lone Moon did not expect this directionless person to tell him the direction. He directly operated on the light screen to check for her location. As he operated, he also gave Chef a look. The two of them summoned their spirit swords at the same time. They were about to set off to find her. 2. Exalted Masters. A slightly weak voice suddenly sounded behind them. Yun Hung, who could finally speak, raised a hand weakly. I'm here too. Did you forget something? For example, him. The two of them paused. Shit, they really did forget. I Ching then walked over quickly. He scanned him from head to toe, especially the spirit sword stuck in his leg. He frowned and casually pulled it out. Then, he conjured a seal to heal the wound on his leg. With a look of disapproval, he reminded, your swordsmanship is not good enough. Don't casually summon a spirit sword to play with. Yin Hung, winky face play? Who was the one who stuck this sword in? Father Nyo, where's Master? I Ching directly lifted Yun Hung onto his own sword and turned to look at Lone Moon. A line of red words suddenly popped up on Lone Moon's light screen. Insufficient authority. Unable to search. Shit. Lone Moon suddenly wanted to spit out a mouthful of old blood. What the hell was this authority? He could only give up on locating Shunning. He directly asked the person in front of him, Shunning, describe what's around you. Shunning opened her mouth and said, Smog. It's quite serious. Nonsense. Don't use such a general description. Do you think this is the imperial capital? Say something with a signature. Oh. Shunning finally looked around and said lazily, I'm sitting on a rock. There's a tree beside me. The kind without leaves. What else? The temperature here is a little low. There's a lot of noise from afar. Eh. She suddenly tilted her head and said, there seems to be a few figures in front. They've been standing there like idiots for a long time. Who are they? What kind of clothes are they wearing? I can't see clearly. I already said there's smog. Visibility is very low. Then why don't you walk over and take a look? So troublesome. Shut up. The anger that Lone Moon had been suppressing for a long time suddenly exploded. Who am I doing this for? Besides you, father. No. Before he could finish, I Ching suddenly tapped his shoulder. What? I Ching's expression was a little strange. I might know where Master is. What? Lone Moon was shocked. Where's she? How did you find her? The corner of I Ching's mouth twitched. His expression became even more strange. After a while, he raised his hand and pointed in front of him. There. Subconsciously, he looked in the direction that Shun Ying was pointing. But the Inchi around them was too heavy. All he could see was a gray land. I Ching conjured a wind seal out of goodwill. Instantly, a gust of wind swept past, blowing away the thick Inchi in front of him. A few hundred meters away, a familiar figure was sitting on a large black rock with his legs crossed, swaying back and forth. Lone Moon felt something in his mind. Suddenly, it snapped. An angry roar rang through the clouds. Shun Ying. Would it kill you to make a F***king sound? She did on purpose. She definitely did it. Wait a minute. What did she say just now? There were rocks and trees around them, and there were 3 idiots standing in front of them. Flip's table. For all, tell me clearly. Who's the idiot? Chapter 391. 5 minutes later. Why are you here? Lone Moon suppressed the urge to beat her up and scanned her from head to toe. She was perfectly fine. See, you had only spoken to him for less than 10 minutes, but she suddenly appeared here thousands of miles away. Oh, someone dragged me here. Shining tilted her head. Who? Shining paused and turned to look at Yun Hong beside her. She took a bite of the fruit that Chef handed to her and said, maybe it's Rich Ghost? Rich? Songren. Lone Moon was shocked. Wasn't he called Mischievous Ghost? Why did he bring you here? Songrun was a ghost, and he carried grievous energy. Chef said before that his grievous energy was easily influenced by remnant souls. The last time the remnant souls attacked the city, his grievous energy exploded once. I don't know. Shining shook her head. Then where is he? I don't know. Shining continued to shake her head. Holy shit, you don't know anything, but you came here so obediently? Where's your intelligence? Did I eat all of it? Shun Ying shook her hands. After a while, she said, isn't he moldy again? I can't just ignore him. Didn't she just miss him? Moldy? What did she mean? Lone Moon was confused. I Ching beside him thought of something and asked, Master is saying? Song Ren's grievous energy exploded again. Chef frowned. He thought about how Yun Heng's grievous energy disappeared suddenly. That meant that Master suddenly appeared here because of grievous energy too. And from this distance, Song Ren's grievous energy seemed even thicker than before. But why didn't Song Ren's grievous energy have this ability to pull people over from thousands of miles away? Unless it was because of this place. He looked at the surging Yin Qi around them and turned to the person beside him. Yin Heng, what kind of place is this northern land? Why is the Yin Qi still not dissipating even though the remnant souls have entered samsara? Yin Heng paused and answered honestly, well, I don't know the exact reason. It's just that it's been like this since ancient times. It's said that because it's located in a cold area, it easily attracts evil spirits. That's why the Yin Qi never dissipates. Originally, the northern region wasn't this big, but as time passed, the Yin Qi became denser and denser, and the number of evil spirits also increased. By the way, he suddenly thought of something and continued. Legend has it that most of the evil spirits here didn't eat people. Just that a few hundred years ago, man-eating deviant ghosts suddenly appeared. Pu Xian ancestor then created Xian men and completely drove them to this place. He sighed, and a trace of pity flashed in his eyes. After a while, he continued, but after that, More and more deviant ghosts appeared, and the area of the northern region became larger and larger. In the end, it became like this. Why are you suddenly asking this? Lone Moon could not help but ask, what are you thinking about? I Ching frowned and explained his guess. If those deviant ghosts can affect Song Run, then the grievous energy in his body, it might have something to do with the northern region. Lone Moon understood as well. He turned to look at Yin Hung. Where was the place in the north that attracted the evil ghosts and spirits in the beginning? It's in the deepest part of the north. Yin Hung pointed ahead. Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look and nodded in unison. Let's go take a look. Whether it was to find out the truth or to find that mischievous ghost. The direction that Yun Hung pointed was where the Yin Qi was the thickest. I Ching brought Shunning with him, and Lone Moon pulled Yun Hung with him. They directly flew in on their swords. The deeper they flew, the darker their surroundings became. The Yin Qi was shockingly thick, and they could even faintly see one or two remnant souls floating past. They were clearly in the human realm, but it felt like they were in the underworld. In fact, the Yin Qi here was even thicker than in the underworld. Lone Moon's heart sank. Why was there such a place in the human realm? What was going on? Before he could think about it, he suddenly felt the weight on his back lighten. Aya! He did not know if he was not used to it, but Yun Hung, who was originally standing on his sword, suddenly screamed and suddenly fell head first. Before Lone Moon could react, he had already fallen to the ground. Fortunately, he did not fly too high. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. How could he fall from his sword? This fellow was definitely the most embarrassing soul formation cultivator he had ever seen. Hey, are you all right? I'm fine. Yin Hung rubbed his face and crawled up from the ground. A look of confusion flashed across his eyes. If you can't stand properly, just tell me. I'll set up an array. Exalted Master, it's not that. Yin Hung shook his head. Just now? I think someone pushed me. What? Lone Moon was stunned. Just as he was about to go down to pick him up, he saw that there was a sudden movement under his feet. Be careful. He immediately produced a stream of spirit qi, which directly tied up the person on the ground and pulled him up. The next moment, there was a series of swishing sounds. Suddenly, rows of densely packed thorns appeared where he was just standing. Each of them emanated a cold Yin Qi that could easily repel any kind of spirit Qi. Yin Hung was shocked, and his whole body froze. If Lone Moon had been one step slower just now, he would have been pierced into a skewer by now. There are no fluctuations of array formations here. I Ching used his divine perception to scan the area and shook his head. There are no strange auras either. Lone Moon frowned. So this was just a simple mechanism, and Yin Hung was so unlucky to encounter it. Lone Moon did not pay much attention to it at first. But then, the deeper they flew, Yin Hung seemed to be possessed by the god of misfortune. Wherever he went, he was met with misfortune. One moment, he fell into the mud. The next moment, he crashed into the stone walls. The next moment, he was burned by deviant flames that fell from the sky. Even the remnant souls that floated around occasionally, completely unconscious, would suddenly turn around and kill him, giving him a shock. If not for Lone Moon keeping a close eye on him, he would have fallen to his death countless times. The most important thing was that these disasters seemed to only target him. The other three were completely fine. Not even a single strand of their hair was messed up, until he fell from his sword for the 101st time. Lone Moon subconsciously conjured a seal to catch the person in midair. It was almost a conditioned reflex to save him. He was just about to pull him up. Beside him, Chef's expression suddenly changed. Father Nyo. In the next moment, several streaks of sword qi were thrown in the direction of the two. Only a few clanging sounds could be heard. Something was bounced off by the sword qi. Lone Moon took a closer look and realized that there was suddenly a lot of black gas around them. It was attacking the few of them with a somewhat violent aura. Grievous energy again. Because the Yin Qi was too thick, he actually did not notice it at first. His heart sank. Instantly, he set up an array around the few of them. Compared to the attack that only targeted Yin Hung, just now, this grievous energy was obviously not different. There was more and more grievous energy around them. Faintly, They could also hear the shrill cries of ghosts. Quick, look down. Yun Hung, who was pulled back by Lone Moon, pointed to the ground with a pale face. The few of them looked down. They saw that in the originally charred wasteland, a large number of illusory figures suddenly floated out continuously. Their appearances were each more horrifying than the last. Remnant souls, I Ching exclaimed. Chapter 392. Why did so many remnant souls suddenly appear underground? They had only seen one or two along the way. It looked like they were being summoned by the grievous energy. More and more remnant souls emerged from the ground, even more than the previous 2 times. What's more, there were more and more. The ghostly cries were so shrill that it seemed like they were going to pierce their ears. Yun Heng's body swayed. He looked like he could not hold on any longer. Lone Moon immediately conjured a seal, isolating the sound. Thank you, exalted master. Yun Heng's face finally looked better. He looked at the increasing number of remnant souls in front of him and took a deep breath. I will set up an array now and send them into Samsara. Wait. He was just about to conjure a seal when Lone Moon stopped him. There are too many of them. You can't handle them. He did not need you to advertise. He directly carried Yun Hung behind his sword and conjured a seal with both hands. In the next moment, a huge reincarnation array appeared under his feet, instantly extending for several kilometers. The yin qi around them dissipated. All the hideous remnant souls slowly became peaceful again. But they did not disappear. Instead, the yin qi surged up again, and they became hideous again. Lone Moon was stunned. What's going on? There was nothing wrong with the array. I Ching, however, was stunned. Could it be? He directly activated his assistant's authority and looked around. His eyes widened. The river of forgetfulness is gone. What? Lone Moon was shocked. He subconsciously sensed his assistant's seal. Nothing changed in front of him. It was pitch black everywhere. There was indeed no sign of the river of forgetfulness. Could it be that there are blind spots in the river of forgetfulness? But there were none here. I think. Shining suddenly raised her hand and said, maybe you should use a wide angle. What? The two of them paused. After a while, they understood. They released their divine perception and scanned the distance. In the next moment, their expressions froze. Holy shit. What the hell? They saw that in a 500-kilometer radius, there were golden rivers everywhere. But those rivers did not flow smoothly from top to bottom. Instead, it was as if it had been cut into countless segments, becoming segments of different lengths. Moreover, they were floating everywhere. Some were on the ground, some were floating in midair, some were standing upright like pillars, and some were twisting like fried dough twists. This didn't look like the river of forgetfulness at all. It looked more like a jigsaw puzzle that was missing many pieces. What's going on here? Lone Moon looked confused. He had never seen such a chaotic river of forgetfulness. Was Shorty on strike? With such a chaotic river of forgetfulness, even if he wanted to restore it, he wouldn't know where to start. Perhaps there will be an answer there. I Ching suddenly pointed to a place in front of them, where golden light flashed. Lone Moon looked at it seriously and realized that it was the source of all the chaotic river of forgetfulness. It should be a part of the main branch of the river of forgetfulness that flowed into this small world. It was also the deepest part of the northern region that Yun Hung had mentioned. Chef, you lead the way. Let's take a look. Lone Moon said. I Ching nodded and summoned his sword will. With a dragon's roar, a huge white dragon made of sword chi appeared. It broke through the thick, grievous energy and the densely packed remnant souls, clearing a path for them. Only then did the few of them fly out and go straight into the depths. They were very fast. In less than a moment, they arrived at the place where the golden light of the river of forgetfulness was the brightest. They landed and looked around. Apart from the fact that the yin qi was a little thicker, they didn't find anything unusual. Shunning, Lone Moon nudged the person beside him. Do you see anything wrong? Why did she feel that something was wrong? Oh, this place should be... She stopped mid-sentence. An inexplicable emotion flashed across her eyes. She tilted her head and said, I don't know. What the hell was shouldn't know? You freaking know. Father Nyo, I believe you. She made a hard gesture. Get lost. Lone Moon glared at her. He thought for a moment and brought up a light screen. He recalled the contents of the instruction manual that was hundreds of gigabytes long. Then, he started to operate it slowly. A moment later, rows of data appeared on the screen. He took out a notebook and looked at the notes as he compared them. The more he looked, the darker his expression became. His brows were almost knitted together. Why is the data of this place so messy? What's going on? I Ching asked. This place is different from other places. The data seems to be inverted. If you remember correctly, I Ching stared blankly. I Ching was stunned. He didn't quite understand what the data meant. He closed his eyes and released his divine perception to sense the aura around him. After a while, his eyes widened in surprise. All kinds of auras are intertwined here, including spirit chi. By right, spirit chi and yin chi and ghost chi were mutually exclusive. In such a heavy yin chi, there shouldn't be spirit chi. But not only was there seemed to be immortal chi mixed in. Two exalted masters, what do you mean? Yin Hung was confused. He took a step forward and was about to ask in detail when his bad luck kicked in. He suddenly tripped and fell forward. Just as he was about to hit the ground, Shan Ying, who was standing the furthest away, suddenly appeared beside him and pulled him up. Light bulb, don't smash it. It'll break. Huh. Before Yin Hung could react, he heard a crack under his feet. There was the sound of something cracking. Suddenly, a white light shone from a meter away from his side, which was also the place where he was about to fall. It seemed to tear apart the darkness around them. It became brighter and brighter. In an instant, it surrounded the four of them. Shuning sighed softly. There was a misty white light around them. In front of them, there was a faint image of an immortal mountain. Illusion. Lone Moon recognized this sorcery immediately. He subconsciously conjured a seal to break this illusion. Wait, I Ching stopped him. He looked around and said, there's no killing intent in this illusion. It doesn't seem like it's trying to trap us. Instead, it seemed like it was trying to tell them something. Lone Moon then put down his hand. After some thought, he conjured several streams of spirit chi and wrapped them around their wrists to prevent them from getting separated, especially a certain person who had a terrible sense of direction. He purposely made 2 more rounds. In a short while, the white light in front of them finally dissipated. They were suddenly in another world. The scene in front of them became clearer. When they saw everything in front of them, their eyes narrowed. Holy shit, this was a place with thick spirit chi. There were spirit herbs and spirit plants everywhere. There were floating peaks filled with spirit chi in the air. However, in the middle of those floating peaks, there was a huge hole. The sky seemed to have been smashed open. Everything around them was being sucked in crazily. It was as if the whole world was going to be swallowed up. Lone Moon and I Ching's heart sank. They cried out in surprise at the same time. Plane crack. There's also a storm. Shuning suddenly added slowly. Chapter 393. What? Lone Moon's heart tightened. So this was a plane storm. He had heard Kai Tian mention before that plane storms were scarier than plane cracks. If they were not dealt with in time, they would grow bigger and bigger until they affected the entire plane. Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up and fix it. Father Nyo, this is an illusion. I Ching reminded him. Lone Moon stopped in his tracks. Shit, he almost forgot. Wait, if these were all illusions in the illusion, how can an illusion of a plane storm be created here? By right, the things that appeared in the illusion were set up by the person who set up the array to confuse people. But only the 3 of them and Mengpa knew about planes. How could the other party set up an illusion of a real plane storm just based on imagination? Unless the other party had really seen it before. So, this planar storm isn't fake. It happened here before. I Ching thought of this as well. His heart sank as he looked at the black hole in the sky seriously. A plane storm actually appeared in this small world before. How was it dealt with? Before he could think about it, an anxious voice came from behind him. Uncle Master. In the next moment, 2 figures flew over, one in front and one behind. As if they could not see them, they flew past them, Their cultivation levels were not low. They stopped about 10 meters in front of them. Uncle Master, it's too dangerous here. Let's go back and inform Sect Master and the others first. The man on the left looked at the hole in the sky and suggested anxiously, "It's too late." The other person shook his head. "If we don't block this hole, it will get bigger and bigger. It will drag the entire world in. But, Disciple Nephew Chui, hurry and inform the sect. Evacuate the residents within a radius of 50 kilometers. I'll go block it first." With that said, the person turned and flew in the direction of the plane storm. "Uncle Master." The other person clenched his fists by his side. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and go back to inform his sect. The person stopped about 10 meters away from the storm. He steadied himself and began to conjure a seal with his hands. In an instant, a huge array appeared in front of him and flew towards the hole. It seemed to be trying to seal the hole that kept swallowing everything around it. However, it was a planar storm after all. How could he deal with it? The array formation collapsed in less than a second. That person changed a few more array formations, but none of them worked. Instead, it caused the hole in the sky to grow larger and larger. Although he knew that these were probably images that had already happened, Lone Moon could not help but be curious about how this plane storm was resolved by him. Sure enough, after a short while, when the man had tried dozens of spells to no avail, he clenched his fists and stood in the air for a while. Suddenly, as if he had made up his mind about something, he clenched his teeth and summoned a spirit sword and directly stabbed it into his chest. Holy shit! Lone Moon was shocked by his sudden move. Was he going to give up because he couldn't make up for it? However, in the next moment, the blood in his chest suddenly gushed out like a fountain, as if it was drawn by something. In an instant, it gathered into a huge blood array. Only when the last drop of blood flowed out did his figure fall, but a translucent phantom floated out from his body. He still maintained the posture of forming the seal. This was dual cultivation of soul and magic. Amazing! The array was activated, and red light filled the sky. The white shadow and the sky, full of red light, formed a strange scene. Even the pitch-black plane gap behind them was reflected in a sea of red. Lone Moon's eyes widened, and he looked in disbelief at the person who had stabbed him without hesitation. He was going to sacrifice his soul. Wasn't this a little too desperate? In order to block that hole, he was sacrificing his own soul. But that was a plane storm. Even so, he might not be able to look at the river of forgetfulness. I Ching suddenly reminded. Lone Moon was stunned and subconsciously looked down. The river of forgetfulness in the illusion was normal, but the moment the array was activated, the originally calm surface of the river suddenly began to move violently. It constantly set off layers of golden waves, and finally, as if it was drawn by something, it turned into countless golden lights and gathered towards the array. In a short while, the originally red sacrifice soul array turned into a sheet of golden light and flew towards that hole. He wants to use the power of the river of forgetfulness to block that hole. Lone Moon finally understood his plan, but only Meng could control the river of forgetfulness. No wonder he wanted to sacrifice his own soul. But even so, he was afraid that the blood array that had turned golden had already completely covered the hole in the sky, but it still did not completely block it. Instead, the suction from inside that swallowed everything became stronger and stronger, and even the array was beginning to distort. That person's soul was already becoming fainter and fainter and could not hold on for much longer. He gritted his teeth, and his hand's seal changed. As the earth shook, the river of forgetfulness below was suddenly cut off and slowly rose into the sky and surged directly into the array. Finally, the hole in the plane storm began to shrink, and the pitch-black hole slowly closed in towards the center. But that person was already at his limit, and his figure was about to disappear. If this went on, before the hole was sealed, the entire array would collapse. At this critical moment, suddenly there was a cry from below. Help! Perhaps because of the movement of the array just now, a figure in green suddenly entered the gravitational range of the plane storm, and was hugging a tree with all his might, trying to climb out. The person in the sky could no longer hold on, and a trace of pain flashed across his eyes. As if he had made a decision, he directly sent a ray of spirit chi over and pulled that person over. Huh? The person who was pulled over suddenly paused. Thank you, you're saving. I'm sorry. Before the other person could finish speaking, that person suddenly closed his eyes as if he could not bear to watch and sent a ray of spirit chi towards the other person's heart. The other person did not even have time to react, and his soul was directly shaken out. That person's hand turned, and the other person's soul immediately turned into spots of fluorescent light and entered his almost transparent body. After fusing with the other person's soul, his virtual shadow finally became a little more solid. He continued to make seals, and the array once again shone with golden light. The hole that had already shrunk closed even faster. In less than 7 minutes, the hole in the plane storm that could swallow the heavens and the earth finally disappeared. And the soul of that person who set up the array was already so thin that it could not be seen. Finally, with a ding, it turned into spots of fluorescent light, one on the left, one on the right, and directly returned to the river of forgetfulness below. Ching, Lone Moon, Yun Hung, did they just witness a tragic salvation of the world? The few people who were watching the show were silent for a while. Before they could sort out their emotions, the scene in front of them changed again. Chapter 394. Compared to the immortal mountain and blessed land from before, the image now was clearly that of the mortal realm. The people walking around were all mortals without spirit chi. This seemed to be a family. Although it was not a wealthy family, it looked like a family that did not have to worry about food and clothing. A young child ran past him, giggling. He looked very unfamiliar, but at first glance, the few of them inexplicably recognized that this person in front of them was the green-robed man who had almost been swept into the plane storm and had his soul sacrificed by the cultivator who had saved the world. So this was his reincarnation after his soul was repaired by the power of samsara? The few of them were stunned and became even more confused. They could not understand the purpose of this illusion and could only continue watching. However, what happened next in the illusion caused them to have mixed feelings. The green-robed man was called Wen Tianyu in this life, and he was the son of a merchant. His biggest wish in life was to earn enough money and marry the most beautiful girl in the city. From the age of 10, every bit of money he earned, he would bury it in a jar like it was a treasure. And he did have the talent to earn money. Before the age of 20, he already owned an entire street of shops in the city and became the richest man in the city. Everything was perfect, but on the day he was about to marry the girl he loved, everything came to an abrupt end. Someone had come to the city, and it was an immortal who had descended from the sky. They said that Wen Tianyu was a person with great opportunities and that one day he would achieve enlightenment and ascend. Tianyu did not want to go, nor did he want to cultivate. But his parents said that this was his fate. His friends said that he had good luck, and even the girl he liked said that he was an extraordinary person. Everyone felt that he should walk the path of immortality. Tianyu had no choice but to go. The number one genius of the immortal sect, Supremacy Wending, wanted to take him as a disciple and promised that he would be his only disciple. All the cultivators were envious of his good luck, but he was not willing at all. He did not know why, but he inexplicably did not like that person. He even wanted to stay away from him when he saw him. He had a feeling that something bad would happen. He did not expect that this feeling would become reality a few months later. A huge black hole suddenly appeared in the sky. Only Honorable One Ding's array could block that hole. Otherwise, the whole world would be destroyed. However, this array formation required the sacrifice of a soul. Unfortunately, his soul alone was not enough to activate the array formation. He needed to find someone with a similar soul to him to sacrifice to the array formation. Only then could the array formation be activated. When Tianyu was that person, he suddenly understood why everyone insisted on him cultivating even though he had a trash spirit root. But he didn't want to die. He was afraid. He wanted to escape. He didn't want his soul to scatter. But he didn't have the chance. His escape plan had been seen through. In a single night, the expressions of his fellow disciples who were originally kind and protective of him had all changed. All of them were scolding him for being selfish, for not recognizing the greater good, and for being ungrateful. The sect leaders said, "We are cultivators, and we should protect the righteousness of the world. How can you abandon the lives of the world for your own selfishness?" His fellow disciples said, "I thought that even if you had poor aptitude, the Venerable One would still take a liking to you. I didn't expect that. I was wrong about you." Cultivators from other sects said, "You are also one of the living beings in this world. How can you bear to see the lives in misery? Once you leave, you will destroy this world." His parents said, "The immortal elders are right. How can you be so selfish? Since you are already an immortal cultivator, you should be like Venerable Wending and disregard life and death." The girl he liked said, "How can you be like this? You are no longer the brother Tianyu that I know." Everyone told him that he shouldn't escape. Everyone told him that he should sacrifice to the array formation. Everyone told him that he had to die, but he didn't want to. He named himself Tianyu, but the heavens seemed to no longer protect him. In the end, he was still pushed onto the altar. He watched as his best friend pushed the spirit's sword into his chest. He watched as his blood flowed out bit by bit and gathered to form the array formation. He watched as his soul slowly dissipated, but he couldn't resist at all. Until the moment before he disappeared, he heard the familiar voice of Venerable Wending, who was also about to dissipate. "I'm sorry." His remnant soul, which had originally turned into a fluorescent light, was instantly filled with resentment. But both of them returned to the river of forgetfulness. Then came the third life, because his remnant soul was reincarnated with resentment, when Tianyu unexpectedly had the memories of his previous life. His monstrous hatred made him fall into the demonic path since he was young. He was determined to kill all the cultivators in the world to avenge himself. He practiced the most dangerous forbidden technique and the most vicious mental cultivation method. He suffered all the hardships in the world and finally cultivated to become a sky fiend. He gathered tens of thousands of demons and attacked the immortal sect. But in the end, he failed at the last moment. He met a person who was born with good fortune and was covered in the golden light of merit. His cultivation was clearly far from his, but he still died under his monstrous luck, and his soul was sacrificed once again. The funny thing was, he only recognized who the other person was at the last moment. He recognized where the merit on him came from. It was actually the merit of saving the world. Both of them sacrificed their souls, but he was spurned by the world and scolded by the cultivators. But his name was immortalized, and he received the sincere gratitude of everyone. He had the merit of saving the world. It turned out that he was not only fighting against the cultivators of the righteous sects, but also against fate in the heavens. Finally, he completely lost hope. He only hoped that the heavens would let him go once and let him have a peaceful life. Then, he ushered in his fourth life. He did not suffer much in this life. He did not have the memories of his previous life, and there was no longer that terrifying black hole in the world. He was just an ordinary scholar. In order to obtain scholarly honors, he deliberately moved and lived in a quiet house in the forest more than 10 miles away from the county. One day, a dozen mystic cultivators in yellow Taoist robes ran through the small path outside the forest. Behind them, there was a strong yin-chi, as if something was chasing after them. The group of people hurriedly took out a voice transmission talisman to ask for help. After a while, a gentle male voice came from the talisman. "The county is in front of you. You cannot let deviant ghosts enter the city and harm the people. Use the restriction talisman to temporarily seal them in the forest behind." "Yes, Heavenly Master." Thus, the deviant ghosts swarmed into the forest and ate the only living person in it to death. Not even his bones were left. The scholar turned into a ghost. His soul body was about to be divided by thousands of remnant souls. Even he himself did not know why the monstrous resentment was completely unleashed, and it was endless. After being swallowed by the resentment, There was only one thought in his mind. He wanted an answer. He wanted to seek justice. He wanted to ask why. But even he himself had forgotten why he had to ask and who he should ask. So he rushed out of the encirclement of remnant souls, out of this world, and broke through the rules of heaven and earth. Then he appeared in front of the manager. Shun-ing, Lone Moon, I-Ching. He finally understood why these illusions appeared. The three of them were silent for a while. Then they all turned to look at Yun-Hung, whose face was pale as if he had suffered a huge blow. Coincidentally, the scholar was called Song-Run, and the heavenly master in the voice transmission talisman was surnamed Yun. Chapter 395. The sudden truth stunned a few of them, especially Yun-Hung. His entire body started to shake. He stood rooted to the ground for a long time, as if he had lost his divine soul. But the surrounding illusions turned and returned to the scene of Song Ren's first life. It was like a movie that was playing on loop. I-Ching and Lone Moon's expressions were complicated. They finally knew where Song Ren's strange hatred towards Yun-Hung came from. There was also the endless stream of grievous energy that even Shorty could not get rid of. Why was it that he could only get rid of it when Shun-Ing was around? Subconsciously, he probably still wanted to seek justice. Even the heavenly Tao could not give him justice. Only Shun-Ing could. Yet in this matter, it was impossible to tell who was right and who was wrong. His tragic fourth life was indeed pitiful. But no matter which life it was, what Yun-Hung did was indeed a great thing to save the world. If he did not stop the plane storm, perhaps not just Song-Ren, but everyone in the small world would probably die. Even their souls would be lost in the cracks between planes, never to be reincarnated. Yun-Hung chose the best way. He even sacrificed himself time and time again. He risked his soul to save the world. So he received the sincere gratitude of everyone in the world. He received a body full of merit and blessings from the heavens. He was favored by the heavens in every life. From the perspective of justice, no one could say that his choice was wrong, even if he sacrificed Song-Ren. Compared to the whole world, one person was too small. So everyone chose to ignore his voice. Everyone forgot to ask him if he was willing or not. Yun-Hung might have let down everyone in the world, but he had let down Song-Ren. Why did Moldy Ghost's body light up? Shun-Ing tilted her head and suddenly asked a question. I-Ching paused for a moment. Knowing that Lone Moon was asking about merit, he explained in a low voice, "Master, although doing good deeds can accumulate merit, there is no specific boundary between good and evil. Therefore, only by receiving sincere gratitude from others can one obtain merit." Oh, Shun-Ing frowned. So, no one has ever been grateful to Moldy Ghost? I-Ching did not reply, and his expression darkened. In his first life, no one knew that he had a part in saving the world. In his second life, he was forced to the altar by everyone. In his third life, there was no need to talk about him. He was a great devil to begin with. Not to mention gratitude, there were countless people who hated him. That was why he became more and more unlucky in each life. Yet, because of the fusion of their souls in the first life, he and Yun-Hung had a connection. They would be entangled together in every life. Hey, what do you plan to do about this? Lone Moon nudged Shun-Ing and pointed at Yun-Hung, who was still in a daze. Shun-Ing looked confused. What does this have to do with me? What? Lone Moon glared at her. This illusion is very clear. Song-Ren is looking for you to uphold justice. Sigh. So troublesome. Troublesome, your sister. We have to solve it, right? What should we do? Shun-Ing tilted her head and thought for a moment. How about cold dressing? This kind of world-class conundrum was really taxing on the brain. Speaking of coleslaw, I suddenly remembered that I haven't had dinner yet. Did Chef bring any stock? So hungry. Yes, Master. Master will be ready soon. I-Ching nodded vigorously. Very professionally, he took out 4, 5, 6, 10 dishes from his storage bag. He even set down the table, chairs, bowls, and chopsticks. He gestured for Shun-Ing to take a seat first. With a twist of his hand, he summoned the true phoenix fire. With a sizzling sound, the dishes that were originally a little cold became hot in an instant. An alluring aroma wafted out. Master, we can eat now. Cook that plate of pork knuckle a little more. I like crispy ones. Yes, master. No problem, master. Lone Moon, son of AB asterisk TCH. At least take a look at where you are right now. We are still in an illusion. Do you think you're watching a movie? You are eating at a table in front of everyone. He had the urge to flip the table. He glanced at a certain someone who was already eating. The corner of his mouth twitched. After a while, he sat down at the table and waited for her to finish eating. In the originally dangerous and unpredictable illusion, the scene changed. The three of them sat around the table and ate crazily. Not far away, a person stood motionless in a daze. Hey, I say, recently, have you been eating more and more? Chef, give me one more bowl. Yes, master. No problem, master. 2 hours later, Shenning, who had finally finished eating, glanced at Yun Hung, who had finally regained his senses. He was kneeling in front of her with a determined look on his face. Have you decided? Yes. He cupped his fists in response. All the shock and confusion from before were gone. I have already remembered what happened in my previous lives. Exalted masters, please no. Exalted immortals, please grant me my wish. You have to think clearly. Lone Moon stepped forward and reminded him in a low voice. You originally had the potential to ascend. If you give up now, in your next life, no, you may never be able to ascend. I did all that not to become an immortal. He smiled. It was different from the kind smile he had before. Instead, he looked a little relieved. What's more, I am the one who wronged him. The justice that he wants should naturally be paid by me. Lone Moon frowned. Seeing his insistence, he could only sigh. After a while, he could not help but ask, in those previous lives, do you regret it? No. He did not even hesitate as he shook his head. If I could do it all over again, I would still choose to do the same. In the face of righteousness, sacrifice is inevitable, even if I have to bear more hatred. It's just that. I hope that I can have a chance to make it up to him. At that moment, Lone Moon did not know how to evaluate this matter. He was clearly a good person. For 4 lives, he had taken it upon himself to save the world. He even sacrificed himself time and time again. Yet he was the one who caused Song Ren's soul to dissipate again and again. His resentment soared to the heavens. This is already the best idea I can think of. Yin Hung clenched his fists by his side and said, even if it might be meaningless, at least give him a fair chance. All right. Shenning nodded and glanced at Chef beside her. Only then did I Ching conjure a seal with one hand. A beam of white light flew out from his hand, and there was a loud clang. The entire illusion immediately broke into thousands of pieces and disappeared like a broken mirror. They once again returned to the northern region that was filled with Yin Qi. However, there was an additional black figure hovering in the air a few meters in front of them. He floated in the air, surrounded by pitch-black resentment that was as dark as ink, carrying a violent and crazy aura. Although they could not see his figure clearly, they could feel that there were 2 sharp, blade-like gazes directed at Yun Hung, as if they were going to pierce through him. Yun Hung took a few steps forward and looked up at the black figure in the air. He could not tell what emotions he was feeling. Guilt, regret, or relief. There were all sorts of emotions. He stared at the black figure for a while, then said in a low voice, I know it's too late to do anything now, but I hope to give you a chance to start over. As soon as he finished speaking, the black figure in the air seemed to have lost control. Suddenly, it turned into a black fog, covering the sky and earth as it pounced towards Yun Hung. Like a sharp blade, it pierced several holes in Yun Hang's body. Glaring fresh blood stained his entire body. But with his last breath, Yun Hung conjured a seal with both hands. In the next moment, a red light lit up. The blood in his body surged out crazily, directly turning into chains that trapped the entire ball of resentment chi. A huge golden array appeared in the air, covering the 2 people below. Yun Hang's hands did not stop moving, quickly conjuring array seals. Then, he said word by word, I am willing to use my blood to build your vitality. I am willing to use my soul to forge your divine soul. I sacrifice everything I have in exchange for your rebirth. Chapter 396. Suddenly, the golden light shone brightly. The grievous aura in the surroundings seemed to be attracted by something and began to surge into Yunheng's body. And a nearly transparent soul floated out of the grievous aura and slowly rose into the golden array above. Yunheng's body also began to float out. Specks of fluorescent light from the soul gathered on the soul above. Song Ren's almost transparent soul, which had been swallowed by the grievous aura, began to solidify at a speed visible to the naked eye. Traces of red blood qi also began to gather towards the other party. That solidified soul immediately became alive. Finally, it changed from a ghost soul to a living soul. Only then did Yunheng stop. His entire body was clearly surrounded by grievous aura, but his mouth revealed a sliver of smile. And, I'm sorry. The grievous aura on his body was instantly purified. His entire body also became fainter and fainter. In the next moment, it completely disappeared. Only a speck of fluorescent light floated out. Lone Moon conjured a seal and kept the last remnant of Yunheng's soul. He sighed. This time, he did not know how long he had to stay in the river of forgetfulness before he had a chance to reincarnate. I Ching also conjured a seal towards Song Run, who had already turned into a living soul. In the next moment, that solidified soul turned into a ball of light and flew into his palm. What do you plan to do with this living soul? Lone Moon asked. Although Song Run had already turned into a living soul, his body had long been eaten clean by deviant ghosts. His soul could not return to his body. Before long, he would become a ghost again. Father Nyo, do you still have Radish's dandelion? I Ching suddenly asked. You still use dandelion? Lone Moon's eyes widened. Wasn't this a little too much? Wasn't it enough to have an eyesore at home? He was attached to Radish's flower previously. His soul was already infected with his immortal qi, so using that illusion is the best. And the current situation did not allow them to think of any other way. Otherwise, they would have wasted Yunheng's efforts. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Still, he took out a flower from the storage bag beside him and handed it over. I Ching immediately conjured a seal to set up an array. In a short while, a human figure slowly formed in the array. He placed the living soul in his hand into the array. In a short while, the array light faded. There was one more person on the ground. Compared to the appearance of Radish before, the human figure now was exactly the same as his soul. However, because he had just been reborn, he would not be able to wake up for a while. Done. Shen Ying clapped her hands. We can go home and eat. Get back here. Lone Moon grabbed a certain person who was about to escape and pointed at the disorderly river of forgetfulness and the sky full of Qi. You call this settled? Father Nyo, shut up. Lone Moon glared at her. Before this river of forgetfulness recovers, none of you can escape. Aya, so troublesome. Troublesome my ass. I didn't ask you to do anything. Just stay here and don't F Astra's King run around. With that said, he glanced at I Ching beside him. Chef, call Shorty over help too. I Ching nodded and took out his communication talisman. Lone Moon scanned the surroundings once more. The river of forgetfulness was strewn all over the place like hanging noodles. Instantly, he felt his head hurt even more. The plane crack was something that even the God Fiend could only seal temporarily with the help of primordial chaos and the others from another plane. No matter what, Yunheng was just a mortal. If he could solve it with just his sacrificial soul, Kai Tian would not have had to look for a manager so frantically. Yunheng only used the power of the river of forgetfulness to cover it temporarily. The gap had always been there. This layer of cover was still very weak. It would not be long before it reappeared. And because he forcefully borrowed the power of the river of forgetfulness, it also caused chaos in the river of forgetfulness of this world. It disrupted the reincarnation of this world. So a fault was formed here that one could only enter but not exit. What's more, this river of forgetfulness was a part of the main branch of this small world. In other words, it was possible that half of the souls that flowed through here were forced to stay here. And because the river of forgetfulness was distorted, it caused their souls to collapse and become remnant souls. And there were more and more remnant souls. That should be how the Northern Land was formed. Although remnant souls had no consciousness, they would instinctively want to return to the river of forgetfulness. That was why these remnant souls would attack the mortal territories in a frenzy. Because only the river of forgetfulness could allow them to re-enter reincarnation. Yet they were intercepted by mystic cultivators who did not know the truth and did not let them enter. They could not reincarnate and could not return to the river of forgetfulness. It was no wonder that they would produce grievances. It was not strange that they became violent and man-eating. The only solution was to let the river of forgetfulness return to its original state and send all remnant souls into reincarnation. The most important thing was to patch up that plane gap. But there were really too many faults in the river of forgetfulness here, and they were scattered everywhere. Even with Shorty around, he and I Ching spent a long time before they slowly pulled those messy rivers back. That's right, 2 people, not including a certain troublemaker who watched the whole show and ate melon seeds. Aya, aren't I guarding the moldy ghost? He hasn't woken up yet. What if he gets moldy again? Shining said seriously. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. You're just King lazy. Songrin was already reborn and not a ghost. How could he get moldy? It's done. Before Lone Moon could fly into a rage, I Ching pulled the last half of the river of forgetfulness back to its original position. The entire river of forgetfulness was finally restored and started to flow again. Beside him, Shorty also waved toward the sky, full of Yin Chi. She was Mengpa after all. Instantly, countless lights lit up. Thousands of remnant souls returned to the river of forgetfulness. The Yin Chi dissipated completely. As if the clouds had been pulled out to see the sun, the surroundings suddenly shone with bright light. The originally dark and gloomy northern land was instantly lit up. Although it was still a piece of scorched earth, it no longer had the gloomy aura of the past. There were still some wisps of spirit chi in the air. Thinking about it carefully, it was normal. Looking at Yunheng's first life in the illusion, he knew that the spirit chi of this small world should not be less than that of other small worlds. But later on, the plane gap appeared. Together with the chaos in the river of forgetfulness, it affected this world. That was why the spirit chi became thinner and thinner. Finally, it caused the inheritance of cultivators to be cut off. Now that the river of forgetfulness was restored, naturally the spirit chi would return. Only, he looked up. Indeed, in the next moment, the air twisted. A pitch-black hole suddenly appeared, as if the sky was being torn apart. He subconsciously turned to look at a certain foodie beside him, but he saw her clenching her fists and making an encouraging gesture. All the best, Father Nyo. You can do it. Get lost. You just don't want to do it, right? Thinking about it carefully, that assistant handbook that he spent a few months to understand, he indeed wanted to give it a try. So he turned to look at I Ching. Chef, you go left, and I'll go right. Let's try using the sky-mending array. I Ching nodded, turned, and flew to the left. Lone Moon flew to the right. The 2 of them activated the array at the same time and directly turned on the assistant authority. Indeed, in the next moment, a strange power spread throughout his body and flowed into that array. They saw that pitch-black hole in the middle slowly shrink and become smaller and smaller. In less than half a fruit's time, that black hole had completely disappeared. Even that violent suction force was completely gone. Chapter 397. Lone Moon brought up the plane data to take a look, then took out a small notebook to compare. When he found that the data was the same and there would be no more gaps, he heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like the assistant handbook was right. The plane assistant had the ability to repair the plane. The props like the bandages that Shanning gave him previously were only supplementary. Hashtag on the importance of reading the user manual hashtag, I Ching was stunned too. He did not think that array formations could really solve the plane gap. He thought about it carefully. When Master used Radish's dandelion to repair the hundreds of plane cracks, She did not seem to use any special props. Suddenly, he thought of something and looked up at Lone Moon. Father Nyo, I think recently, Master, I know. Lone Moon did not wait for him to finish and nodded directly. He turned back to look at Shan-ing, who was trying to wake the unlucky ghost on the ground with a stick. A trace of worry flashed across his eyes. She will say it when she wants to. Lone Moon flew back and picked up the corpse on the ground. Things are settled. Let's go back. Back to the immortal realm? Shorty was stunned. But aren't Uncle Master Siyu and the others still here? Let's bring the moldy Songren back to the immortal realm first. Songren's illusory body was formed from Radish's dandelion. He was also a living soul. Once he entered the body, the illusory body became his real body. In a sense, he was already an immortal body, but he had never cultivated before, so he could not stay in this small world. He could only bring him back. Lone Moon sent a message to Siyu and the others as he opened the realm gate in the sky. No one hesitated. I Ching brought Shun-ing and flew over on his sword. Lone Moon carried the still unconscious Song Run and hesitated for a moment. Then he flew in too. Why did he feel like he forgot something? He could not remember it. Forget it, it was not important anyway. Not far away, the red-black couple who had just escaped from the grievous Qi. Winky faced their hearts hurt. Songren woke up. Perhaps because of his previous experience, the illusory body that I Ching created merged very well with his soul. There was no rejection at all. But because he was not familiar with the use of immortal Qi, he still needed others to transfer immortal Qi to him to maintain his human form. Other than that, there were no other problems. But, who are you? He looked at the people in front of him blankly. After a while, he looked at himself. Who am I? I Ching, Lone Moon, Shan-ing. Lone Moon's expression changed. He scanned I Ching from head to toe. I Ching grabbed I Ching's hand and released a sliver of God power to check I Ching's primordial spirit. A moment later, he shook his head. I'm fine. I Ching's soul showed no signs of grievance. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. They had thought that he had lost his memory due to the influence of resentment, just like last time. Now, it seemed that he had let it go. Yun Hung risked his soul to be destroyed in exchange for his rebirth. Finally, Yun Hung forgave him and let him go. It was better to forget everything now. You really don't remember it all? His expression became even more confused. He tried hard to think, but after a while, he shook his head. I don't remember anything at all. Who am I? Where's this place? This is the invincible heavenly palace. You. Lone Moon hesitated. After a while, he said, You are a new disciple of my invincible sect. You had just started cultivating when something went wrong. That's why you were injured, seriously injured. Your body can't be used anymore. So we attached you to a dandelion. You're fine now. Just focus on cultivating in the future. I'm a dandelion? I Ching looked shocked. He did not doubt what Lone Moon said. Then you are? Of course we are your teachers. I am the sect's managing elder, Lone Moon. He pointed to the other two. There, that's the sect master eating the fruit. The one who passed the fruit is Chef, Elder I Ching. As for the rest of the sect, I will send someone to introduce you to them later. Only then did he nod his head. He still had a puzzled look on his face and was about to ask something else when the door was pushed open with a bang. Little Missy, a certain vegetable rushed in like a cannonball. He scanned the room and his eyes fixed on Shan-ing. He pounced on her. You're finally back. Seeing that he was about to pounce on her, I Ching, who was at the side, was very calm and natural. He silently stretched out a leg. The next moment, Radish lost his footing and fell to the ground. The dandelions in his hands scattered all over the room. Radish was obviously used to falling. He threw away the flower stalks in his hands and was too lazy to get up. He sat on the ground and tugged at the corner of Shen Ying's clothes. Little Missy, Radish misses you so much. When you weren't around, no one watered me. Look. He pulled at his hair and said with a pitiful look, My leaves are split. Shen Ying slowly finished eating the fruit in her hand. She replied, Oh, little Missy, how could you leave just like that? You didn't even bring Radish to play? He felt even more wronged. Radish is about to grow mushrooms. And why is this ugly thing back? He saw Songren at the side and sized him up. His face was full of disdain. He remembered this person who ruined Big Sister Little Hong's dual cultivation ceremony. He confirmed with his eyes that this was an annoying person. You came at the right time. Lone Moon stepped forward. He will be a disciple of our sect in the future. Bring him around the sect and familiarize him. Ask Lan Hua to make arrangements for him. I'm not going. Radish rejected directly. He wasn't Little Missy. He didn't like it. Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He wanted to stew it at any moment. His true body is also a plant. You are considered the same as him. If you don't take care of him, who will? Really? Radish hesitated for a moment. He stood up and looked at him. Indeed, he felt the spirit chi of the plants on him. It was very familiar. Suddenly, he felt that he wasn't that ugly anymore. He looked at him even more seriously. This is? Songren felt goosebumps from his stare. He subconsciously looked at Lone Moon beside him. Don't you remember? He's Radish. He's the sex. He thought for a moment before giving an adjective. Pet. What was a pet? You're from the same sect as him. Regarding cultivation, you can ask. Forget it. You should ask Lan Hua. Radish's mischievous personality was a bad influence. Oh yes, your body was given to you by Radish. My body? Songren was shocked. He looked at Radish in disbelief. His eyes widened. Many complicated emotions flashed across his face. After a while, he nodded heavily. I understand. He then took a step forward. Gritting his teeth, he seemed to have made up his mind about something. He cupped his fists in the direction of Radish and called out respectfully. Dad! Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, Radish, for all, nanny. Chapter 398. Radish did not expect that when it went to send flowers to Little Missy every day, it would bring a son. As a sexist person, Radish did not like the sudden appearance of a son, mainly because he was not a Little Missy. Until Lone Moon told him that out of the hundreds of disciples in Invincible sect, he was the first to have a son, the only one in the entire heavenly palace, and very precious. Only then did he put away his temper and happily accept the dandelion, with the intention of teaching it everything he knew. But because of Song Ren's amnesia, he accepted the fact that he was a plant spirit very quickly. Not only did he follow Radish everywhere and bully the immortal cranes, he also followed Radish to the back of the mountain to squat in the pit every day, waiting for people to come and water it. Therefore, the disciples of the sect soon discovered that the person who would not rest until he caused a ruckus in the sect every day was a dandelion besides the radish. Every day, he would either pluck the fur of a spirit beast or pluck the flower of a newly bloomed immortal herb. Lone Moon could not help but wonder if the decision to acquiesce to the relationship between the two was a little rash, just to make it easier for Song Run to cultivate. But there were too many things to do in the sect. He could not spare any attention. In addition, he had to go down to the lower realm from time to time to take care of the previous small world and the progress of the cultivator's studies. The matter of the river of forgetfulness had been resolved, and the spirit chi in that world was beginning to recover. Of course, the matter of imparting Tao and cultivating had to continue. Otherwise, if they went to the river of forgetfulness at every turn and created another northern land full of remnant souls, they would really be busy to death. Apart from Lan Hua and Shorty, Siyu was the disciple with the highest cultivation level in the sect. She was already half a step to exalted immortal. With her around, Lone Moon could rest assured. It was just that once they went down to the lower realm, the sect naturally lacked manpower. And it was time for the immortal herb trade with the various continents that happened once every 100 years. He was so busy that his feet did not even touch the ground. Only then did he realize that something seemed to be missing. Holy shit, Yu Hong was still in the lower realm. No wonder the red and black couple, who had been in the lower realm for a few months, were finally brought back. You're saying that you're trapped in the north by grievous energy? Lone Moon glanced at the exhausted couple who had just been brought back. Elder, Yu Hong's face was full of guilt. I was not skilled enough. That's why I was trapped by the grievous energy and could not report back in time. Please punish me, sect master and elder. Madam, how can I blame you? Before Lone Moon could speak, Little Black, who was at the side, immediately said worriedly, "Who would have thought that the grievous energy was so strong?" We didn't even have time to react before we were pulled down to the lower realm and trapped in that damned place. But if my cultivation level was high enough, the two of us wouldn't be so helpless. We wouldn't have to trouble sect leader to find us personally. Yu Hong's face was still full of guilt. According to what you said, this matter should be your husband's fault. Little Black pulled her hand and said apologetically, "I didn't protect you well, which caused us to be trapped by resentment. If you want to punish someone, punish me." Little Black. Yu Hong glared at him. "This is our sex matter. Don't mess around." "I don't care." Little Black tightened his grip on her hand and said affectionately, "I'm a member of Invincible Sect since I married you. I'm your devil in life and your dead devil in death. If you want to punish me together. If you want to die, enough, the two of you." Lone Moon could not help but interrupt the two of them. "If you want to show off your affection, can you do in the house? We don't want to eat it." "Yu Hong, you're saying that in the few months you were in the lower realm, you were trapped in the north and never left?" "Yes." Yu Hong nodded. "That place was full of Shi, and there was no daylight. Little Black and I couldn't get rid of the grievous energy, and we didn't dare to rush out." "Then were you injured?" Lone Moon's heart sank. It was Song Ren's grievous energy that pulled them down to the lower realm. That grievous energy could rush up to the immortal realm. Little Black aside, it would be difficult for Yu Hong to resist it with her cultivation level. Most importantly, she was trapped for a few months. I didn't. She seemed to have thought of something as her face turned red. She glanced at Little Black beside her before continuing, "Fortunately, Little Black has a Dharma treasure that can temporarily open up a small mystic realm. So, for the past few months, the two of us have been in that mystic realm and have not been injured by the resentment. Then we sensed that the surrounding Shi had disappeared, so we left the mystic realm." Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief as long as she was not injured. "Don't worry, madam." Little Black immediately smiled like a flower and said affectionately, "As long as your husband is here, I won't let you get hurt no matter what." With that said, he grabbed her hand and kissed it. Yu Hong's blush deepened. She looked up and looked at him. Immediately, their eyes met and pink bubbles seemed to appear all around them. Everyone could vaguely hear the sound of dog food falling. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He hurriedly waved his hand to chase them away. All right. The two of you can go and rest." "Yu Hong, remember to take stock of those immortal herbs in the afternoon." "Yes, Elder." The two of them looked at each other again. Then, holding hands, they turned and walked out of the hall. Immediately, the entire hall was filled with a pink aura. Even Shun-Ing, who was sitting at the top and nibbling on a fruit, felt the smell of dog food. So she narrowed her eyes and turned to look at Boss Lon, who was criticizing her taste in clothes and forcing her to wear Dharma clothes. She suddenly said, "Boss Lon, what? Is grievous energy more powerful than your demonic chi? You must be joking." His expression was as if she was looking down on him. Which one of the most powerful Shi in the world can compare to demonic chi? All kinds of Shi and grievous energy are like toys in the eyes of demons. Once the demonic chi is released, it can be dispelled in minutes. "Oh," Shun-Ing gave a long response and continued to nibble on her fruit as if nothing had happened. But the two of them who had just walked to the door stopped in their tracks. The pink bubbles surrounding him burst into pieces in an instant. Some kind of cold aura was emitting from Yu Hong's body and rushing towards Little Black. Madam." Little Black's little heart trembled and his legs turned to jelly. "Madam, listen to my explanation." Little Black. A roar sounded and the entire hall shook. Yu Hong's originally delicate figure suddenly turned into a metal Barbie. "How dare you lie to me?" With that said, she picked up a certain demon king who was trembling beside her and threw him out. "Madam." Before he could finish speaking, he turned into a small black dot in the sky. Yu Hong's figure also flashed and disappeared at the door. It was obvious that she was chasing after him to beat him up. The hall fell silent. 3 pairs of eyes turned to look at a certain foodie above them. What's the matter? Shining looked innocent, pure and kind, as if she knew nothing. Is it time to eat? I Ching, Lone Moon, Lanhua. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Do you know what it means to not expose the truth when life is hard? Huh? Shining tilted her head. Forget it. Eat your food. Although Little Black was very pitiful, why did he feel so good for some reason? Oh. She then continued to nibble on her fruit. She felt that it was even more fragrant, the kind that didn't taste like dog food. Chapter 399. Little Black did not appear in the sect for a whole month after this beating. Yu Hong seemed to be really angry. Every time Little Black tried to crawl back, she would find out and throw it out mercilessly. Even the other demons that came and went were not friendly. The only thing missing was a sign at the heavenly gate saying that demons and dogs were not allowed in. Lone Moon finally felt a little more relaxed. He had thought that he would have to give the newlyweds a wedding leave or something. Now it seemed like he could save the trouble. But although the matter in the sect was resolved, something else came up. What's this? Shun Ying poked the colorful bird on the table. Hong Ming sent it. He said that it's the first phoenix that appeared in their plane. Lone Moon explained casually. Phoenix? Shining turned to look at Chef beside her. It just looks similar. I Ching glanced at the bird on the table. This is a beast without sentience. At most, it was a bigger bird. Oh. Shin Ying's eyes narrowed. What's it for? I heard that it has some special abilities. Hong Ming specially sent it to you to thank you for what happened last time. For me? Extra food? Lone Moon nodded. Ever since he sent Hong Ming and the others back to their plane, they would send some things over from time to time. But that plane had just been opened, and there was really nothing special. This was the first time he saw a living creature. But he did not elaborate. What is this bird used for? Just as he was thinking, the bird on the table flapped its wings and suddenly flew up. It let out a crisp bird cry. It flew in a circle above the rear hall, and its body began to emit a white light. In the next moment, its long tail flapped, and with a flash of white light, something came crashing down from the sky, falling straight onto the table. A crack appeared on the surface of the table. The few of them looked down and saw that there was a fist-sized, crystal-clear object on the table. There was light flowing inside, and immortal chi overflowed. This was immortal stone. Lone Moon was shocked. He picked up the stone and saw that it was a supreme-grade immortal stone. This bird can actually drop immortal stones. Even I Ching looked at the bird in shock. This was practically a moving immortal stone vault. With it in the sect, there was no need to worry about a lack of immortal stones. Of course, there was no shortage now. Hong Ming sure is generous. Satisfied, Lone Moon patted the bird that was lying back on the table. He smiled like the president of a bank. You even sent such a precious bird here. And what a sensible god. Wow. Shining tugged at the bird's feathers curiously. So, can it be eaten? Lone Moon, I Ching, can you think of anything other than eating? Lone Moon rolled his eyes at her and picked up the bird. This is a bird that can produce immortal stones. Can it be eaten? Can I eat those that produce immortal stones? The meat was clearly quite fragrant. You're wasting it. Of course, he had to keep the immortal stone first. It would be such a waste to eat it just like that. Besides, you've eaten 6 meals today. 6. Was there really that many? Shun Ying stared blankly at the bird in his hand. But it looked really delicious. Is the immortal stone that important? Nonsense. What are you going to eat and drink if you don't have immortal stones? Lone Moon dispelled her desire to eat seriously. This is a supreme grade immortal stone. The immortal chi inside is the purest. The disciples in the sect can directly absorb the immortal chi inside when they cultivate. It's very beneficial to their cultivation. If not, they can exchange it for something else. Is that so? Shin Ying's eyes narrowed. Something flashed across her eyes. She said slowly, but this stone, wasn't it that bird pooped out from that thing? Isn't it a little unhygienic to absorb what it pooped out? Also, you used the thing it pooped out to exchange for food and drink. Then shut up. Lone Moon's face turned green. If she continued, he was going to vomit. Why did a good thing become completely different when it came out of her mouth? He suddenly felt that the immortal stone in his hand was burning. Here, here. He shoved the bird over. Add more food, all right? Was there need to go so far just for food? Chef. Shining was delighted. She turned and shoved the bird to I Ching. Spicy chicken. The insanely spicy kind. Yes, master. No problem, master. Lone Moon. F*** King retard. A while later. Father Nyo, where you going? Wash my hands. He suddenly felt that his hands smelled like bird poop. Oh. Shining then sat up straight. It was rare that she took the initiative to set up the plates. She held a pair of chopsticks in one hand and looked like a hungry ghost waiting for dinner. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He could not be bothered with this foodie. He threw away the spirit stone in his hand and turned to the kitchen to wash his hands. At this time, there was already a dead bird lying on the chopping board. All he felt was a lump in his chest. His heart hurt. My money printing machine. He silently looked away. He quickly washed his hands and walked out. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve. When he went out, Shining still maintained the same posture. Only her eyes were narrowed. She did not look as energetic as before. Foodie Shun. Lone Moon waved his hand. Seeing that she did not respond, he could not help but push her. It's not dark yet. Why are you sleepy? Not eating the bird anymore? Shining turned to look at him. Her eyes were misty. It was as if she only heard what he said after a while. Ah, I'm not eating anymore. Holy shit. Why didn't you say so earlier? Her feathers were plucked out. You freaking did it on purpose. Are you all right? Lone Moon then realized that something was wrong with her. What's wrong? Why are you like this? What's wrong? Father Nyo, I want to discuss something with you. What is it? Her eyes became even more misty. She looked like she was going to fall asleep the next moment. I might need to hibernate for a while. What hibernate? There is no winter in the heavenly palace. What exactly happened to you? Lone Moon panicked. Suddenly, he thought of something. His heart tightened. Is it because of the plane splitting last time? Are you? I'm a little sleepy. I just want to sleep. Shining tilted her head. She did not answer him directly. Just that. I'll sleep a little longer. His heart sank. How long? Quite a long time. Lone Moon clenched his fist by his side. He took a deep breath and suppressed the surging emotions in his heart. He looked straight into her eyes and said word by word, I'll just ask one thing. Tell me honestly. You will be fine. Shining was stunned for a moment. A moment later, she nodded heavily. Of course. That's good. She suddenly tapped on her wristband. A light screen appeared. She operated something lazily. During this period of time, I will seal all the plane passages. Do not open them. Also, she stopped mid-sentence. Her tone changed. Leave that bird for me. I'll eat it when I wake up. Who cares about the bird now? Lone Moon was getting more anxious. Tell me first, what can we do to help? He tried hard to calm himself down. He turned toward the kitchen and shouted, Chef! Chef! I Ching just walked out of the kitchen. It'll be ready soon. Master, Shining seemed to finally be unable to hold on. Her body swayed, and she fell to the side. With a clang, the dishes in her hands spilled all over the floor. The blood drained from her face instantly. She was as white as snow. Master! Chapter 400. Master! Master! I Ching called out a few times and realized that the person in his arms was not responding at all. His face turned even paler, and even his hands began to tremble slightly. He subconsciously conjured a seal and transferred his god power. Blue light appeared around him, and large amounts of god power flowed continuously toward Shining. Chef, what you're doing is useless. She's not a cultivator, even if you give her. Holy shit, do you want to die? Seeing that he was even about to use his inner core, Lone Moon was shocked and immediately pulled him back. Get out of my way. I Ching waved his hand away, his eyes red and filled with madness. Chef, calm down, Lone Moon said in a low voice. Shining just said that she's only in a deep sleep temporarily. She'll wake up. I Ching faltered. The crazy aura around him stopped. He turned around and asked hoarsely, How long? Lone Moon lowered his head and clenched his fists. She didn't say, but since she said she's fine, then she must be fine. His expression darkened, and he finally calmed down. The red in his eyes also slowly faded, but he hugged the person in his arms even tighter, as if she would disappear if he was not careful. She's not doing well these days. You should have noticed it long ago, Lone Moon continued. She didn't say it, perhaps because it's useless to say it. We can't help it all. It would only make us more worried. She's a manager. Some things we might not understand at all. You have to believe in your master. She? Manager. He suddenly interrupted Lone Moon, as if thinking of something. His eyes widened as if grasping at the last shred of hope, and he suddenly hugged the person up. Yes, we can find a manager. What are you doing? Lone Moon was stunned. What did he mean? Let's go to the other world, he said anxiously. Shenjing. She's a manager too. She must have a way. That's right, Lone Moon reacted too. He almost forgot about that big boss. He immediately conjured a seal to open a passage to the Divine Realm space. Go from the Divine Realm. It's faster there. The two quickly returned under the starry sky. Lone Moon was just about to open the plane passage when the next moment, his face paled. Huh? Why is there no reaction? He tried a few more times, but it still didn't work. He couldn't even touch the plane border. The planar channel can't be opened. I Ching's expression darkened. With a flick of his wrist, he summoned a sword Dao and said, Then let's charge forward. It wasn't the first time anyway. Don't mess around. Lone Moon panicked and immediately pulled her back. She almost lost her life the last time, and she still wanted to do it again. Oh yes, Shining just said that she sealed all the plane passages. She must have her reasons for doing this. If you forcefully open it, you might end up harming her instead. I Ching retracted his sword and clenched his fists tightly. Then what should we do? Lone Moon fell silent. He clenched the flute in his hand tightly. After thinking for a while, he said, Since we can't go over, maybe the other side can come over. Shenjing is also a manager. She should have a way. He suddenly thought of something and tapped on the wristband. A light screen popped up in front of him. As he operated it, he said, I remember that the manual of this wristband says that I can directly contact the other plane. He carefully scanned the light screen and finally found a red, quiet icon in the lower right corner. Found it. His expression lit up, and he immediately tapped on that icon. In the next moment, a call interface popped up, accompanied by calling sound. The other side picked up very quickly. Almost at the instant the ringtone rang, the call was connected. A familiar figure immediately appeared on the screen. Littling, why are you free? Shenjing's voice paused. The smile on her face turned cold. Why is it you little bastard? She frowned. Why did you suddenly contact me? Where's my littling? Elder sister Jing, Shuning. Lone Moon then stepped aside, revealing I Ching, who was carrying someone behind him. Shenjing's expression darkened. It was as if a cold wind had swept past. Her gaze was like a knife piercing the two. What happened? Why did she suddenly enter a dormant period? We're not sure either. Lone Moon shook his head. She didn't tell us the reason. She just suddenly said that she wanted to hibernate for a period of time. I knew something would definitely happen. I told her long ago not to receive any planes, but she just wouldn't listen. She's been so stubborn since she was young. Shenjing stood up and paced back and forth anxiously. After a while, she seemed to have thought of something. Her gaze became even colder as she looked at the two. That's not right. She has 2 portions of plane power on her. Unless she encountered a huge consumption, she would not enter a dormant period. What did she do before? Lone Moon was stunned. Then he answered, she repaired hundreds of plane cracks before and opened up a new plane. What? The person on the screen stiffened. Her body trembled. The surrounding aura suddenly became terrifying. It was as if something was about to burst out. The hands by her side were clenched tightly. Even through the light screen, she could feel a huge pressure covering the sky and earth. Even the entire space of the Divine Realm was shaking. They heard a few faint cracking sounds. The originally pitch-black starry sky began to crack from all sides of the light screen. It was as if the Divine Realm was about to be torn apart. The cracks extended in all directions. Open. Plane. In the next moment, monstrous anger exploded from her body. It was as if a raging fire was burning around her. "I'll kill you two bastards." "Boss!" Kai Tion suddenly appeared in the screen. He grabbed the raging manager. Calm down, calm down. You release your power so casually. It will create many plane cracks. You must calm down. Get lost." She kicked the person beside her. The sky was full of murderous intent. The person who had always been calm suddenly exploded. "Little Ling has already bound a plane. How dare you let her open up a new plane? Are you idiots? Why didn't you stop her? I'm going to kill them. I must kill them. If they hadn't abducted her, Little Ling, would things have turned out like this?" "Boss!" Kai Tion immediately crawled back and hugged her leg tightly. "The passage there has been sealed. You can't go through. You two bastards. Hurry up and open the passage for me. Don't think that everything will be fine. If something happens to Little Ling, there will be no need for your plane to exist." "Boss, if we force a breakthrough, it will affect Shuning too." Shen Jing paused. Then she calmed down. Even the few cracks in the divine realm stopped extending. After a while, she took a deep breath. She looked at Lone Moon and I Ching with even colder eyes. It was as if she was looking at two dead people. Lone Moon felt a wave of coldness hit him. She really wanted to kill them. Yet I Ching looked down at the person in his arms. He put her down carefully. He turned and knelt down in Shun Jing's direction. "Senior Shun, it is true that we did not protect Master well. I Ching is at Senior's disposal. But Master's condition is unknown now. I hope that Senior can tell me how to wake Master up on account of our sisterhood." Chapter 401. Don't think that I'll let you off just because you jumped out voluntarily. I'll deal with you sooner or later. Shen Jing glared at him. Compared to Lone Moon, she hated this scumbag who took her little sister away even more. She desperately resisted the urge to force open the plane. She glanced at the person beside him and said in a low voice, "Little Ying's current situation is because she used up too much energy. That's why she entered a dormant period. She can only wait for her body to recover automatically." "Then when will she recover completely?" Lone Moon asked anxiously. "I don't know." Shun Jing frowned. "Since she's already a manager, then everything in your plane will be reflected back to her. That meant that the plane was her, and she was that plane. Fortunately, that plane was stable now. It proved that she would be fine for the time being. She just needed time to recover. There will be huge differences in every plane. I'm not there, so I can't monitor the data of your plane. That's why I can't calculate the specific time." "You mean Shining might always be like this?" "Maybe." I Ching clenched his fists even tighter. His body trembled. After a while, he looked up and said, "What kind of energy is she using up?" "That's not for sure." Shun Jing said, "Every plane has different forms of energy. When she came back before, she was hungry all the time. That's also a sign of energy loss. She could only replenish her energy with food before. But this time, it's obviously more serious. She can't recover in time. That's why she's dormant." "And what about God Power?" I Ching continued. "God Power, Immortal Spirit Chi. Can these be used too? And the Assistant Seal." "Chef." Lone Moon was shocked. Was he crazy? Shining said that the Assistant Seal couldn't be removed. Nobody knew what would happen if they lost it. "It can be used." Shun Jing's eyes narrowed. She glanced at the two of them and said sarcastically, "But do you think the Assistant Seal is something that can be returned so easily? If it can be taken back so easily? Would I keep something as useless as Kai Tion?" "Useless Kai Tion. Unjustly implicated. What's more, the two of you became assistants because of Little Ling. Even if you return this power, it'll be a drop in the bucket. It won't have any effect." Shen Jing glanced at them from the corner of her eye. "To put it bluntly, all of you are my sister's gigolos. Stop messing around." She thought about it, her expression becoming more and more anxious. She paced back and forth a few times before saying, "I'll think of a way to lift the seal on your plane and come over as soon as possible. You two better look after Little Ing for me. Otherwise," she snorted coldly, raised her hand, and pressed something. The light screen in front of her flashed, and the call was cut off. I Ching's expression darkened. He turned and walked back to Xin Ying's side. Carefully, he helped the person on the ground up. He felt the assistant seal in his body and activated his god power again. Chef! Lone Moon jumped and immediately grabbed his hand. Didn't you hear what Xin Jing said just now? Even if you remove the assistant seal, you can't wake her up. But I still have to try. I Ching turned back, his gaze determined. I am here because of Master. If not for her, perhaps we would have disappeared along with this plane. I can't just watch her sleep like this and do nothing. Father Nyo, I'm not as thorough as you. I only know that as long as there's a sliver of a chance, I can't give up. Whether it works or not, even if it's just to make Master wake up a second earlier, it's worth it. Lone Moon faltered, but I Ching had already flung his hand away and was conjuring seals again. Shit! Lone Moon cursed under his breath. He gritted his teeth and pressed his hand down again. Wait a minute. You dash. If you want to try, let's try together. Lone Moon interrupted him directly. He sat down cross-legged at the side and glared at the person who was unconscious. Holy shit. I must have owed you in my previous life to have met you two cheaters. He had never done such a loss-making business. So be it. With me, no matter what, we can at least get one more second. Let me say this first. Lone Moon thought about it and instructed again. You can try, but don't be stubborn. When I say stop, stop. Otherwise, not only will you get hurt, you might even harm Shining. I Ching nodded. Let's begin. The two of them conjured seals at the same time and sensed the assistant seal in their bodies. In the next moment, a huge force instantly filled their bodies. Lone Moon took a deep breath and carefully guided that special force, then transferred it towards the person in front of him. He faintly felt something being drawn out of his body. Just as it was about to enter Shun Ying's body, his divine perception suddenly felt a sharp pain. That force could not be transferred at all and was instead directly repelled. Lone Moon felt a sweetness in his heart. Immediately, the corner of his mouth was filled with the taste of blood. He subconsciously glanced at the person beside him, only to find that the person's face was even paler than his. It seemed like Xin Jing was right. He really cannot take it back. He was just about to retract his hand when he suddenly found that he could not. The assistant's force was repelled, but the immortal qi in his body began to flow rapidly, madly towards Shining. What was going on? Chef, hurry and stop. Lone Moon reminded him, but it was already too late. The immortal qi in his body flowed even faster. In just a moment, he felt his dantian empty. His vision darkened, and he directly fainted. Nyo! I Ching panicked. In the next moment, his vision also darkened, and he fell. Both of them fell into darkness. The moment he closed his eyes, he seemed to see something. He did not know how much time had passed. When he woke up again, he vaguely felt that there was something very glaring, so bright that they could not open their eyes. Lone Moon subconsciously wanted to cover his eyes, but found that he could not move at all. There was a sharp pain all over his body. He directly opened his eyes, but a strong light shot straight at him, making him a little dizzy. You're awake? An exceptionally cold but somewhat familiar voice sounded, followed by a few clicking sounds like the sound of something being pressed. Lone Moon looked up, only to find that not far in front of him, there was a blurry reflection. The figure was not tall and did not look old. Her legs were crossed on an armchair, and her eyes were cold as she looked in his direction. He closed his eyes and suppressed the surging feeling of dizziness. Only then did he see that person's face clearly. It was cold but exceptionally familiar, and seemed to be a few inches smaller than he remembered. This was Shun Jing. Before he could react, Chef beside him had already blurted out in surprise. Master, you're awake, that's great. What? This was Shunning. Chef subconsciously wanted to go over, but his body moved. In the next moment, the two of them felt a sharp pain all over their bodies, and there was a faint burning smell. Lone Moon was stunned and looked down. Holy shit, who tied them up? And it was the kind where the two of them were tied together and hung upside down. The person on the chair frowned and looked at the two of them even more coldly. Who are you? What is this place? What is your purpose? As soon as he finished speaking, there was a whoosh. 4 to 5 round balls flashing with red light appeared in the air around them. The black muzzles on the balls were all aimed at the two of them. The voice was as cold as ice. Speak. I Ching. Lone Moon, huh? What was going on? Chapter 402. Shening, why did you tie us up? Lone Moon subconsciously tried to break free from the light around him. The next moment, the white light flashed, and he felt another sharp pain. The light wrapped around him even tighter. More importantly, he couldn't activate any immortal chi at all. It was as if he was sealed. You've done your homework. The person's expression turned even colder. With some mockery, she said, You even know my name. Tell me, how long have you invaded the plane? I Ching became more and more anxious. He subconsciously wanted to go over. Master, what exactly happened to you? Ouch, ouch, ouch. Lone Moon exclaimed. The light wrapped around him even tighter. Chef, don't move. Master? Shen Ying's eyes narrowed. Isn't it a little too late to claim kinship now? No way, Shening. Lone Moon's face was full of disbelief. Don't tell me you really lost your memory? Wait a minute. He carefully sized up the person sitting on the chair. His eyes widened. Why do I feel like you're shorter? He looked again. It wasn't an illusion. The person opposite him really was shorter. Even the robe she was wearing was longer. Shening, you dash. It seems like you don't intend to tell the truth without suffering a little. Before he could finish, Shening seemed to have lost her patience. She raised her hand and pointed at something. In the next moment, the spheres surrounding the two suddenly opened like petals. A red beam of light shot out from both sides, connecting from head to tail, forming a ring. It slowly descended downwards and stopped at the position of their heads. It's all right. It's the same if I scan your brains directly. In the next moment, the ring became smaller and smaller. The red light was about to cut their heads. Lone Moon was shocked. He sweated. Holy shit, no way. Shening, you're serious. If you have the guts to invade the plane, you have to be prepared to pay the price. Invade? Lone Moon then realized that she had misunderstood something. He hurriedly shouted, Wait, we're not invaders. You're not even in Shen Jing's plane now. This is your divine realm. Shen Ying faltered. Even the red ring stopped. She sat up from the chair. What did you say? Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did he confirm that she had really lost her memory, and it was not completely forgotten. She had only forgotten about them. You're no longer in your original plane. This is the immortal spirit plane. The starry sky behind you is the 3,000 planes. As fast as he could, Lone Moon briefly explained everything that happened since they transmigrated, including how she went into hibernation. The more Shen Ying listened, the deeper her frown became. She exuded an unapproachable aura. She scanned the two of them a few times. After a while, she said in a low voice, You mean to say that I'm the manager of this plane now? That's right. Lone Moon nodded hurriedly. If you don't believe me, you can contact Shen Jing directly. You'll believe her words, right? Shen Ying's expression stiffened. Something flashed across her eyes, but she did not confirm the call. Instead, she walked over, reached out her hand, and placed it on both of their foreheads. She closed her eyes and sensed for a while. After a while, he retracted his hand and looked at the two of them with some surprise. Then, he pointed at the light screen beside him. In the next moment, Lone Moon felt his body relax. The light that bound them suddenly disappeared. The two of them fell back to the ground with a thud, and that red halo also turned back into a small round ball. It shrunk to the size of a marble and flew back to Shen Ying's palm. Master! I Ching stood up immediately. He subconsciously wanted to hold her hand to check. Shening frowned and took a step back. She looked at him with cold eyes. His outstretched hand stiffened. A hint of pain flashed across his eyes. Are you all right? Shening frowned. She seemed to be not used to it. She did not answer his question. Instead, she turned and said seriously, Both of you do have assistant seals on you, so I'll believe what you said for now. And this place can indeed change according to my wishes. This is your divine realm. Of course you can do whatever you want. Lone Moon rubbed his waist that was hurting from being bound. He got up. Speaking of which, how many things have you forgotten? Why did he feel that not only her height, but even her personality had completely changed? She did not look the least bit lazy like before. In the past, she did not talk as much as she did now, because she was too lazy to talk. Shen Ying's expression darkened. She waved her hand. In the next moment, the originally pitch-black starry sky turned into a different world. In the blink of an eye, the three of them found themselves in a house that was tens of square meters large. There was a coffee table in front of them. There was also a familiar-looking sofa beside it. It was exactly like the one in Shen Ying's house. She turned and sat down on the sofa. Then, she asked, "How old was the me that you knew?" Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look. Then he answered, "This is a little difficult. The time after the transmigration is a little hard to calculate. But I remember the first time I met you. You said you were 28 years old." The corner of her mouth twitched. She seemed to be a little disgusted. After a while, she turned to look at the two of them. "I remember this year. 15 years old." 15. Lone Moon scanned her from head to toe. No wonder she was shorter. It seemed that not only her memory, but her body had also returned to 15 years old. Is it because we used the assistant seal without permission and did not succeed? I Ching clenched his fists. A trace of pain flashed across his heart. "So, Master, you will? Are you an idiot?" Shining suddenly interrupted rudely. For the first time, she rolled her eyes at Chef. "If you didn't do that, I might never wake up again." The two of them were stunned. What did she mean? "You don't understand?" Seeing that they were confused, Shun Ying then explained. "Didn't you say that my sister told you that I went into hibernation because I expended too much energy and lacked energy?" You guessed right. The assistant seal is indeed the most suitable energy for me to recover. Then why? Their assistant seals were still on their bodies. I should have set a protection mechanism on your seals in advance. Shunning glanced at the two of them. That's why you couldn't return it to me. Instead, you transferred another kind of energy in your body to me. Immortal Chi? Divine power? The two of them said in unison. I don't know what it's called either. She clenched her fists. But it's obvious that those two energies were not enough to replenish my energy. So although I woke up, I returned to 15 years old. I didn't become the manager I was before. Then, Master, will you always be like this? I Ching could not help but ask. Her eyes dimmed. She shook her head. I don't know. Why don't we ask Xinjing? Lone Moon suggested. She's a manager too. Even if she can't solve it, she should be able to help you. And now that you're awake, you just have to remove the plain seal. I Ching nodded. That's right. Xinjing is the only one who can help Master now. Shining did not move. Instead, she looked at the two of them with a strange expression. Her eyes widened. She looked at the two of them as if they were retarded. A moment later, the corner of her mouth twitched. She spat out a few cold words. Do you want to die? Why don't you shake your heads and listen for the sound of the waves? I Ching, Lone Moon, he suddenly felt that the 15-year-old Shining was so poisonous. _angle_. Chapter 403. Why do you think I closed the plane passage? Shining glanced at the two of them. Lone Moon subconsciously replied, to prevent intruders? Shen Ying's mouth twitched. Did you learn Chinese from a math teacher? Her eyes were full of contempt for his IQ. Lone Moon was speechless. He suddenly missed the lazy girl in the past. Only an invasion without going through the normal channels is called an invasion. The plane passage is the normal passageway for people to come and go. Would there be such an open and above-board intruder? Then, sealing the passage, could it be to prevent the manager from coming over? Lone Moon was stunned. A moment later, he suddenly thought of something. Xinjing. She deliberately prevented Xinjing from coming over? Of course. Shining frowned and gave him a look that said, You're not hopelessly stupid. I don't know about the other managers, but if I enter the dormant period, my sister... Her expression changed, as if she had thought of something. She'll definitely find you guys first. Lone Moon instantly thought of Xinjing's murderous aura just now. His heart turned cold. If not for the plane seal, that Siscon would really kill her directly. One must know that from the start. She was the one who most opposed Shining taking over this plane. Previously, it was because Shining insisted and she could not stop Shining. Now that Shenying's power had not recovered, it meant that no one could stop her. Can't you see such simple logic? Did you become assistants by being funny? You actually want to open the seal. How confident are you that you can stop a manager? Or... She narrowed her eyes, her gaze piercing straight at the two of them like knives. Do you think you're tired of living, so you're rushing to die? I Ching, Lone Moon, his heart hurts. Although you make sense, can you not stab me with knives? Shun Ying returned to 15 years old, be it in terms of power, memory, or body. It was as if she had been restored with one click. She turned back into an ordinary 15-year-old girl. Although apart from being shorter, she still looked the same, but she was no longer the cheat from before. Lone Moon and I Ching both checked and found that the current her was just a little stronger than ordinary mortals. Her abilities were even inferior to the cultivators of the lower realm. Her entire person was like a cheat that was suddenly sealed. In other words, she was now immortal. Then how does Master recover? I Ching clenched his fist by his side and looked straight at Shening, asking anxiously, "What should we do?" Shening turned her head awkwardly under his direct gaze and subconsciously leaned back. "I just checked the data of this plane. There is no possibility for me to recover immediately." "Then what should we do?" Lone Moon's face paled. "She wouldn't always look like this, would she?" "Wait," Shening replied with a single word. She casually opened a light screen and saw a row of data flash by. As she operated, she replied, "Hibernation is meant to recover. After a long time, it will naturally recover. However, based on the current speed, it will probably take a few hundred to 1,000 years." "What?" Both of them were shocked at the same time. "Hundreds, thousands of years. What about divine power and immortal qi?" I Ching continued to ask. Master woke up because of this. If he had enough immortal qi, would he be fine? "All right, we can return to the Heavenly Palace. There are still several immortal meridians in the sect. If we use that, we might be able to..." "It's useless." Shining shook her head directly. "I woke up more or less because of the assistant seal. It's not because of any immortal qi or divine power. That energy originally existed in this plane. How could it be useful to a manager?" Both of them fell silent. They couldn't think of any other way. "Forget it. Let's go back first," Lone Moon suggested. "It's good that you're awake. We can slowly think of a way." I Ching once again looked at Shining worriedly. He could only nod. They could only take one step at a time. "Don't worry, Shining." Lone Moon patted his chest and promised. "With chefs and my abilities, even without the assistant seal, we can definitely protect you. What's more, Invincible Sect is very safe. Before you recover, it's better to go back." Shining looked up at him and stood up from the sofa. This is what you assistants should do. Can't you stop spewing venom and say something nicer?" Lone Moon sighed. He habitually wanted to open up space transportation. He raised his hand to conjure a seal, but found that his dantian was empty. He froze. "What's the matter?" Seeing that he didn't move for a long time, Shining turned to look at him. "Weren't they leaving?" "I forgot. The immortal qi hasn't recovered. I can't open up space transportation." She subconsciously turned to look at I Ching. "Me too," I Ching replied. Shunning. Lone Moon looked embarrassed. He just said that he would protect her, but he immediately dropped the ball. "Why don't you wait for us to rest and recover some energy before leaving?" The corner of Shun Ying's mouth twitched. She narrowed her eyes and glanced at the two of them who were full of confidence just a moment ago. After a while, she said coldly, "I suddenly don't want to return to when I was 28 years old." "Why?" "Because I was blind. That's why I chose the two of you as my assistants." I Ching, Lone Moon, a stab to the heart. "Which one of you brought something related to the destination?" Shining asked as she opened up a screen. "Something related?" Lone Moon thought about it and immediately opened up his storage bag. "I have it." With that said, he took out a dandelion that looked like a carrot and handed it over. "What do you want this for?" "Set the coordinates," she replied, and directly placed the dandelion on a table beside the screen. In the next moment, a row of data flashed. The space in front of them twisted, and a black passage opened up. "Let's go." Shuning ignored the two of them, who were staring in shock. She turned and walked inside. The two of them, didn't they say that they would completely lose their cheats and become ordinary people again? Once again, they suffered a crushing defeat in terms of intelligence. After crossing that transportation tunnel, in the blink of an eye, the three of them had already returned to Invincible Sect. Perhaps because they had set the coordinates for the carrot, they did not go to the back hall, but to the back mountain. The three of them looked up and saw that in the large immortal plant field, there was a huge carrot that occupied half of the field. It was squatting in the pit and shaking its leaves. Beside it, there was a dandelion that was swaying with the wind. Little Missy. The carrot saw the three of them at one glance. It jumped out of the pit and hopped towards them. Because of its huge body, every jump caused the ground to tremble. In an instant, it crushed a large number of immortal plants. Be careful of those immortal plants. Lone One's heart ached. Those were all immortal stones. The carrot often maintained its human form and did not feel it. Now it looked like this fellow should go on a diet. Little Missy, you're here to water me so early? The carrot is so happy. It jumped hard and pounced. The whole carrot came crashing towards them. It looked like the huge mountain of carrot was about to crush Shun Ying's body. Holy shit, Shun Ying was not the same as before. Carrot. Lone Moon got a fright. Luckily, I Ching reacted quickly and kicked at the bottom of the carrot. The carrot lost its balance and fell to the side. With a plop, it was crushed into the immortal plant field at the side. A large number of immortal plants were instantly crushed into a pile of mud. W. Lone Moon. Chef, you bunch of prodigal sons. Oh, greater than over equal to co. Oh. Chapter 404. Little Big Sister, Little Big Sister. Radish was obviously used to being kicked. It rolled a few times and pulled out the leaves on its head. It plucked the dandelion in the middle and gave it to Shun Ying. Here, here. Shun Ying's body stiffened slightly. She looked at the flowers that were suddenly handed to her. Her eyes widened. For me? Yes, yes, yes. Radish waved its leaves happily and nodded vigorously. My flowers are the prettiest. I'll only give them to Little Big Sister. Something flashed across Shun Ying's eyes. She clenched her fists and stared straight at the large dandelion flowers. She did not respond for a long time. All right, Radish. Lone Moon stepped forward and persuaded. Do you have to give it to her every day? Shun Ying will not accept. Before he finished speaking, the person beside him suddenly reached out and took the flowers. She hugged them in her arms and replied in a low voice, Thank you. The two of them, Lone Moon was stunned. Radish was even more stunned. It looked at the empty leaves in disbelief and then at the flowers in her arms. It took a long time before it realized what had happened. Accepted. Little Big Sister accepted my flowers? That's great. It jumped up excitedly. It could not care less about getting up. The whole Radish rolled left and right on the ground. That's great. It rolled all the way back to the previous pit. As it rolled, it said excitedly, I knew that Little Big Sister would like my flowers one day. No, I have to bloom more for Little Big Sister. As he spoke, he pulled out a certain dandelion that was basking in the sun. Son, let's bloom. Father, are you finally going to teach me to bloom? That's great. So a certain dandelion jumped out and turned into a human form. The three of them, it was just collecting flowers. Was there a need to be so happy? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. The next moment, his expression changed. Wait, where are you rolling to? My immortal herbs. Come back. Unfortunately, it had already rolled further and further away. The remaining half of the immortal herbs in the back mountain fell instantly. Radish, this prodigal. His heart ached when he heard the sound of the celestial stone shattering. As expected, handing Song Run over to Radish was a wrong decision. Master, I Ching could not help but turn to look at Shun Ying, who was still hugging the flowers. Why did you suddenly accept the flowers? Didn't she not accept flowers in the past? Can't you accept it? Shun Ying tightened her grip on the dandelion. This was the first time someone had given her a flower. It's not chrysanthemum. Lone Moon subconsciously interrupted. What kind of chrysanthemum are you talking about? I Ching, Shun Ying, Lone Moon was a little worried about Shun Ying's current situation. The fact that she had become a normal person naturally could not be made public, although her previous role in the sect was only as a mascot. Even if he didn't do anything now, it wouldn't be any different from before. However, her sudden change in personality and her shorter stature were too obvious. In addition, with her cheat, even her invisibility attribute seemed to have been sealed, and her presence seemed to be exploding. So on the way back from the back mountain, he could not help but worry about how to help her. But soon he realized that his worries were a little unnecessary. Disciple 1. Sect. Sect Master. I'm so lucky to have met you today. Greetings, Sect Master. Shining stopped in her tracks and nodded slowly. All right. Disciple 2. Sect. Sect Master, did you just water radish? You've worked hard. Disciple 3. Sect Master. Heavens, I'm actually seeing the sect leader. Am I dreaming? Quick, give me a punch. Disciple 4. Sect Master. Have you eaten? Along the way, they met dozens of disciples. They all looked excited as if they had won a big prize, but none of them noticed anything different about Shening. It was as if Shening had always been like this. Even Yu Hong did not notice anything different. The key was that Shening seemed to have suddenly switched off her venomous tongue mode. She actually walked back with a straight back and a cold face. Her expression did not change at all. She did not say more than 10 words. Even when she saw Yu Hong, she only nodded. Shening, why did you? Lone Moon was just about to ask when someone walked in. Good heart. Lan Hua suddenly rushed in. Can you return the fire-subduing fan I gave you the other time? Without that fan, it's not easy to control the deviant fire. This concerns my reputation as a 10th level heaven-grade alchemist. Can I borrow it from you? He definitely could not have a dark history like exploding his cauldron. Shening was shocked. She took a step back. After a while, she turned to look at the two people beside her. Who? This is Boss Lan. I'll explain to you later, Lone Moon explained. He took out a red fan from his storage bag. Looking at Lan Hua, he asked, Are you talking about this? Yes, this. Lan Hua's eyes lit up. He reached out to take it. Quick, give it to me. I'm halfway through refining my cauldron. Oh. Lone Moon's eyes narrowed. He turned and handed the fan to the person behind him. Shening, give it to her. Huh? Shening, I Ching, holy shit. Lan Hua exploded. He's doing this on purpose. He's definitely doing this. Shening looked down at the fan, then at the person in front of her. Why did he hand it to her? Without thinking much, she handed it over. Lan Hua's face twisted. He looked like he was crying or laughing. He took it with trembling hands and turned to glare at a certain profiteer. You bastard, just you wait. He opened the storage bag beside him. He gritted his teeth and started digging. Here, the pills I just refined. This is 10th level. This is 9th level. This is below 8th level. There are also some Dharma artifacts I refined before. This is the water repellent bell, frost silk, primordial bell. He dug out more and more until there was nothing left to stuff. Only then did he stop and shake the empty storage bag a bit. Shening, who was almost buried by the Dharma artifacts and pills, that's all for now. Lan Hua looked like he had nothing left to live for. Is that okay? This damned good heart. Shening stiffened. A moment later, the corner of her mouth twitched, and she said, before he could finish his words, Lan Hua directly stuffed the storage bag over here. With that said, he took the fan, turned around, and walked out of the door. If he stayed any longer, he would even leave his underwear here. Not bad. You did well. Lone Moon patted Shun Ying's shoulder in satisfaction. Only then did she finish her sentence. There's no need. Lone Moon, I Ching looked thoughtfully at Shun Ying, who still had a cold expression. Why did it feel like Master was? Chapter 405. It's getting late. I Ching looked up at the sky, then turned to Shun Ying and said, Master, it's time for dinner. Dinner? Shun Ying faltered, but I Ching pointed to the table at the side and said, Master, wait here for a while, I'll do it now. If you're hungry, you can eat some pastries first. Shun Ying frowned and shook her head. My body is different from ordinary people. I don't need. Before she could finish, she saw I Ching open a storage bag and take out plates of different kinds of exquisite pastries. The unique sweet smell of pastries wafted into her nose. He placed more than 10 plates on the table, then turned and hurried to the kitchen. Shen Ying's words were stuck in her mouth, and her eyes widened. So fragrant. Shen Ying stared straight at the 10 plates of pastries, clenched her fists by her side, and then slowly reached out. Just as she was about to grab a piece, a hand suddenly reached out from beside her, directly grabbing the pastry closest to her, and stuffed it into her mouth. The pastries this time are not bad. Lone Moon ate while turning back to look at Shen Ying. Oh yes, what did you say just now? Nothing. Shen Ying's expression turned cold, and she sat down expressionlessly. But her gaze could not help but fall on the tempting pastries in front of her again, and after hesitating for a while, watching Lone Moon beside her eat one by one, she could not help but pick up a piece and put it into her mouth. So delicious. Piece by piece, the pastries on the table disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. The two of them seemed to be competing, not even bothering to talk. The whole yard was filled with the crunching sounds of eating pastries. When Chef finished cooking and came out, there were already more than 10 empty plates on the table, and the air was filled with the smell of gunpowder. I Ching was obviously used to it, and put away the plates and replaced them with more fragrant dishes. So, the two hamsters joined in a new round of fighting for food, until 2 hours later, the two of them rubbed their full stomachs and stopped. Master, I Ching habitually poured a cup of spirit tea and handed it over. You'll feel better if you drink some water. Shen Ying paused. She looked up at I Ching and then at the cup of tea in front of her. She clenched her fists by her side and took it with both hands. She lowered her head and took a sip. She replied in a low voice, Your cooking is edible. Thank you. I Ching, who had unexpectedly received the gratitude card, was stunned. He looked at her in surprise. Master was Che? Lone Moon rolled his eyes at her. Out of habit, he ridiculed her. Only edible? But you were fighting so fiercely with me just now. You won't even let go of the last piece of meat. Stop pretending. The entire Three Realms knows that you are a foodie, okay? He rubbed his stomach and stood up. All right, if you're full, let's go to the main hall. If you don't remember what happened before, I'll have my disciples come over so that you can recognize your face. Otherwise, it'll be hard to explain if you recognize the wrong person. Shen Ying stiffened. I'm not going. Why? Something flashed across Shen Ying's eyes. Is your logic broken? She turned and glared at him. Then she resumed her cold demeanor. What's the difference between calling them over for me to recognize and admitting that I lost my memory? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. That made sense. Then call Yu Hong, Qing Yu, Shorty, and the others over. It's okay if you don't recognize the others, but they often come to the rear hall. You have to meet them. Shen Ying sat up straighter. I'm not going to meet them. Don't worry. Lone Moon continued to explain. Even if they know the truth, they are trustworthy. Nothing will happen to them. I'm not going. Shen Ying still objected. Why is that? She did not answer. Her face remained cold, and she had no intention of changing her mind. She just clenched her fists tightly by her side. She seemed a little nervous. I Ching was stunned. He subconsciously turned to look at the pile of Dharma artifacts that Lan Hua had left behind. There was also the dandelion on the chair beside him. Something clicked in his mind. He asked tentatively, Is Master not good at interacting with people, so you don't want to meet strangers? Lone Moon was also stunned. His eyes widened as he looked at Shen Ying in front of him. No way, you have social phobia? What a joke. Shen Ying's whole body stiffened. In an instant, she was as cold as ice. It was as if all the warmth in her body had faded away. Large amounts of cold air floated out of her body. Her whole body seemed to be frozen. A few words flashed through her mind. I've been discovered. Is identical to. What to do? What to do? Why not just kill her? #. Hey, what's with that look in your eyes? It's as if you want to kill me to keep my mouth shut. Lone Moon's hair stood on end. He had guessed right, hadn't he? It had to be. This sharp-tongued, 15-year-old Shen Ying actually had social phobia. Shining, you dash master. Before he could finish, I Ching suddenly interrupted. He took a step forward and said, "It's getting late. You've just woken up. Your body hasn't recovered yet. Why don't you rest early?" With that said, he pointed to the bedroom at the side. "If there's anything, we can talk about it later." Shining then looked up at him. The cold air around her body eased. She replied, "Mm." She turned and walked into the room, but her footsteps were stiff. For some reason, she seemed to be fleeing. In the next moment, she slammed the door with a bang. The two of them, she can't really. Lone Moon felt that it was a little unbelievable. I saw that she was very fluent in dissing us in the divine realm. She didn't look like she had social phobia at all. Maybe not. I Ching said in a low voice. "Don't you think that Master looks very much like someone now?" Lone Moon was stunned. "Shen Jing." I Ching nodded. He looked at the tightly shut door. His eyes darkened. In the past, Master probably didn't interact much with people. Now, I just don't know how to respond to other people's kindness. That was why she took Radish's flower and imitated Shun Jing's cold demeanor. Shining was in the house. What to do? Someone else found out. Even his sister couldn't tell. So how did they know? Were those two demons? Sure enough, communicating with others was much scarier than dealing with planar storms. Returning to the first day when she was 15, Ing, a girl with mild social anxiety, panicked. Ever since she decided to become Big Sister's assistant at the age of 3, Shining had not interacted with strangers for a long time. She was very busy. Just the plain information that Shun Jing had arranged for her had already taken up all of her spare time. Especially after she started physical training at the age of 5, she rarely went back to Earth. Every day, he would study, work, and beat bugs. There were only 2 semesters every year, and when he went back to school, he basically did not come into contact with any strangers. Moreover, due to the time limit of the teleportation space, she had to rush back after every exam. She didn't have any good classmates, and the only person she interacted with was her strict older sister. Chapter 406. Big Sister said that nothing could go wrong with the plane, or it would cause irreparable effects. So she had to be straightforward and not sloppy. Knowledge had to be at her fingertips, and she could understand everything. Shining worked hard for more than 10 years, and finally did it. She completed all of Big Sister's training, and could deal with any plane crisis calmly. After a long period of training alone, she learned everything, but she forgot how to get along with others. Big Sister said that she had to be as cold and heartless as the winter, but what if the other party was not an intruder? Well, what to do? No, don't panic. She was a plane assistant. Although she didn't know how to do it, she could learn. And the only reference beside her, as long as she was like Big Sister, it should be fine. Yes, absolutely fine. So, when Shining came back to her senses, she realized that her soft and cute sister seemed to have suddenly become cold, the kind that could not be turned back. "Master!" Suddenly there were a few knocks on the door, startling a certain person who was drawing circles in the corner. Shining stiffened and returned to the chair in the room like lightning. Her expression instantly turned on the fridge mode, cold as snow, as if the panic, grievance, and helplessness just now were just an illusion. "Come in." I Ching then pushed the door open and entered, glancing at a certain person sitting at the table with her back straight, his eyes like water. "Master, this is Xianbud brew. It helps you sleep. In the past, you would drink a cup before sleeping. I was afraid that you would not be able to sleep, so I sent it over." Shunning glanced at the cup in his hand and instantly thought of the table full of dishes. Her heart moved. "Specially sent over?" What a good disciple, but what should she say? Should she say thank you? But she had already said it before, so... "You still have something else?" she asked coldly. "Yes, there is one more thing." I Ching did not care about her especially cold expression. He stepped forward and was about to speak, but saw Shun Ying's black claw on the table. "Why is Master's hand dirty?" Shun Ying stiffened, and for a moment, cold air began to emit out. She must not let him find out that she had just dirted it by drawing circles. I Ching turned around and sat down. He took her hand and took out a handkerchief from somewhere and wiped it. "Master!" Did you forget that I put a dust removal talisman in your storage bag? If you think it's inconvenient, why don't I refine a dust-removing pearl and bring it along? Shining did not answer. She was completely stunned. She stared blankly at the person who was wiping her hand. She suddenly felt as if her palm was on fire, burning up. Are all disciples like this? It's done. I Ching wiped his little black claws back to his little white claws. He then let go of her hand and looked up. Shining panicked when she accidentally met his gaze. She clenched her burning palms. What should she say? If there's nothing else, you can leave now. Something's not right. I Ching, who had been chased away for the umpteenth time, felt suffocated. He glanced at the person in front of him and sighed before saying, "There's one more thing that I wanted to mention to Master previously." "Speak. Master, can you?" He suddenly leaned forward and scanned her from head to toe. With a serious expression, he said, "Take off your clothes." "Huh? Take off my clothes?" Now. A bunch of mosaics flashed across her mind. She vaguely felt a rumbling sound, as if something had exploded. Her face burned with a strange heat that she had never felt before. What disciple? So scary. W. Master's figure has changed now. This Dharma robe is a little too long. I Ching tugged at her long sleeves and continued to explain, "I want to add an array on the Dharma robe so that it can shrink and shrink according to Master's figure." "Huh? Just changing the clothes?" Shining was stunned. "Master, do you think there's anything wrong with that?" I Ching asked in return. "No." Shining immediately shook her head. She heaved a huge sigh of relief in her heart, but her expression did not change. She stood up immediately. As she tugged at her belt, she said, "I'll take it off for you now." Take it. Master." I Ching was shocked. It was only then that he realized what she wanted to do. His face turned red, and he hurriedly pressed down on her hand. "Not now. Tomorrow. You can give it to me tomorrow morning." "Oh." Only then did Shining stop. I Ching turned his head and took out a new set of Dharma robe and handed it over. His face was so red that it was dripping blood. "This is a replacement. Master can change into it tomorrow." He did not even dare to look at her. When he looked down, he saw the belt around her waist that was about to be loosened. He subconsciously reached for it and was just about to put it back on for her. But the door was pushed open with a bang. Lone Moon suddenly rushed in. I Ching was shocked. He was already nervous. His hands trembled. The hand that was originally going to put on the belt pulled down instead. In an instant, the whole belt was pulled down. Without the restraint of the belt, the supreme-grade Dharma robe immediately showed its supreme-grade softness. It directly slid down Shun Ying's body. "Shining, the dandelion that Radish gave you, you'd better." Lone Moon suddenly paused. He looked at Shining, then looked at Chef, who was still holding the belt. Instantly, he understood something. He covered his eyes. "I didn't see anything." "You guys continue. Shining, I Ching." Lone Moon left very decisively. "Aya, his daughter has grown up. Wait a minute, the current Shun Ying seemed to be only 15 years old." The hand that was just about to close the door paused. He pushed it open again. "Chef, you beast. She's only 15. Before he finished speaking, Chef suddenly seemed to come back to his senses. He directly stuffed the clothes in his other hand to Shin Ying and spoke at a speed that he had never spoken before. "Master, it's already late. The night wind is strong. You should rest early." "Master, there are new blankets in the cabinet. Your body has not recovered, and you've always been afraid of the cold. You'd better be more careful." "Master, you can't eat too many of the purple immortal fruits on the table. I'll change some pastries for you. If you're hungry at night, you can eat them first." "Master, I'll come again tomorrow to get the Dharma robe." He gave a series of instructions, explaining everything in detail. When he was done, he directly turned and walked out. On the way, he also dragged Father Nyo, who was at the side and could not get a word in. His footsteps were so fast, as if there was something chasing behind him. He walked all the way out of the rear hall before stopping. "Chef, why is your nose bleeding?" Lone Moon turned and saw 2 tubes of bright red flowing down from under I Ching's nose. Was there a need for this? Ching only took off her outer clothes just now, right? There were still a few pieces of clothes inside. Wait, what are you doing? Holy shit. Don't faint. I don't want to carry you. Before he finished speaking, the person in front of him swayed and had already fallen head first. Her hand was still tightly holding onto a pink belt. Lo Moon, son of AB *TCH. Inside the house, Shining frowned. What a strange disciple. She put down the new clothes in her hands and took off 2 more. She turned and climbed on a bed. She buried herself in the blankets. Sleep. 15 minutes later, she lifted the corner of the blanket and looked at the drink on the table. A trace of hesitation flashed across her face. After a while, she climbed up again. She held the cup with both hands and took a sip. The next moment, her eyes widened. So good. Chapter 407. In the rear hall of Invincible Sect. Bo-Si Immortal Gathering. Lone Moon looked at Yu Hong with some surprise. What Bo-Si Immortal Gathering? It's the emperors of the various countries in the Bo-Si. They heard that Elder and you have returned, so they jointly wrote to the emperor, requesting to hold the Bo-Si Immortal Gathering 3 days later, according to tradition, to congratulate the emperor on his return. Yu Hong handed over the invitation in her hand and explained. Lone Moon took it and scanned the contents of the post. He frowned. Why didn't I know that there was such an immortal gathering in the past? Was the Bo-Si pool mentioned on the sticker? That's a celestial pool to the west of the Heavenly Palace. It's hundreds of miles away from the sect. Yu Hong pointed to the west and said, every 100 years, an immortal spring will appear there. It is formed by immortal chi, and it is rumored that the immortal chi there is even denser than the immortal meridians. Therefore, the previous Bo-Si emperor would hold a Bo-Si immortal gathering every 100 years. Inviting the monarchs of the Bo-Si countries to taste the spring is also a reward for them. The location of the immortal spring is a beautiful sea of flowers to begin with. The scenery is beautiful. Yu Hong continued to explain, immortals from other continents often go there because of its fame. So, the Bo-Si Immortal Gathering slowly became a grand gathering of the immortal world hosted by the Bo-Si Emperor himself, once every 100 years. Then why do you say it's going to be reopened? Lone Moon continued to ask. Hasn't it been reopened in the thousands of years we've been away? Indeed not. She shook her head and said, that celestial pool was originally at the border of the Bo-Si's 9 heavens. Later on, when the immortal realm and demon realm merged, the immortal spring happened to be at the intersection. In the past, the relationship between the immortal and demon realms was not as good as it is now, so no immortals dare to go there anymore? Lone Moon asked. Yes. Yu Hong nodded. The immortal spring is useless to the demons, and the immortals don't go there. Naturally, no one thought of that place, so we didn't do anything about it. In addition to the relationship between the monarchs and the sect, she didn't continue, but her expression wasn't very good. Her meaning was also very clear. Lone Moon's face darkened too. Of course, he remembered clearly what kind of people the 15 country emperors of the Bo-Si were. On the surface, it was under the jurisdiction of the Bo-Si, but in reality, it might not be sincere. When the Invincible Sect took over the Bo-Si, they had wanted to replace it and collude with the previous immortal officials to take advantage of them. Only after Lone Moon saw through him and beat him up by Chef did he become more obedient. But they had left for thousands of years. Although the sect had Lan Hua, the former emperor, and they couldn't openly betray the Bo-Si, they had done many small things in secret. On the day of Yu Hong's wedding, all the celestial emperors came to congratulate her, but none of the 15 country emperors of the Bo-Si showed up. In the years that the sect master has been away, these so-called monarchs have all died. On the surface, they seem to be sincere, but behind the scenes, they are spreading rumors everywhere, saying that Emperor Lan Hua is from the demon race, and temporarily taking over Invincible Heavenly Palace is a plot by the demon world to swallow up the Bo-Si, deliberately provoking a dispute between the two worlds. Yu Hong said indignantly, if not for the celestial emperors of the other continents coming out to clarify things, and their cultivation levels being lower than Lan Hua's, those lowly people would have long attacked the heavenly palace and replaced it. Lone Moon looked down at the invitation card in his hand again. The more he listened, the deeper his frown became. Elder Lone Moon, Yu Hong said worriedly. They suddenly proposed to reopen the Bo Si Immortal Gathering. It's definitely not to congratulate the Celestial Emperor's return. They must have other intentions. They just want to provoke a dispute and fish in troubled waters. Lone Moon threw the invitation card on the table beside him. He saw through such a small trick at one glance. He laughed coldly and said, "It's best if they can make us kill each other, so that they can reap the benefits." Yu Hong was stunned, and a hint of confusion flashed across her eyes. The meaning of being an elder? Can't you tell? Lone Moon pointed at the invitation card and said, "That invitation card is filled with congratulatory words for the return of the Bo Si Emperor. 9 out of 10 sentences are words expressing joy, expectation, and longing. The words are exaggerated, making it seem as if Chef, this celestial emperor, had an affair with them in the past." No. The moment he finished, the person who was peeling nuts at the side suddenly interrupted. After thinking about it, she asked seriously, "What do I want their legs for? It's not like they can be used for cooking." Yu Hong, Lone Moon, are you sure you're not here to make a joke? Is there a problem with these congratulatory words? Yu Hong still didn't understand. Of course there's no problem with us. Lone Moon laughed and knocked on the invitation card with his flute. But the key is that this invitation card is not just for us to see. More importantly, it's specially written for Lan Hua to see. Yu Hong was stunned. What has this got to do with Boss Lan? Lone Moon laughed even colder. Lan Hua has been in the sect for so many years, and his cultivation is the highest. Although he's a fiendish cultivator, he was once an celestial emperor. The entire immortal world thinks that he is the Bo Si celestial emperor. Now that we're back, they say that he was just a substitute manager, and Chef is the real celestial emperor. What would you think if it were you? Lan Hua didn't manage the invincible sect. Yu Hong explained. Everything in the sect was handled by her and her junior martial sisters. In the past 3,000 years, aside from researching all kinds of spells, Lan Hua had been fooling around with his buddy, Radish, who knew how many messes he cleaned up. But others don't know. Lone Moon glanced at her. Who would have thought that Lan Hua, who had Demon King cultivation and guarded the Bo Si for thousands of years, really had no interest in the so-called Celestial Emperor position. And he himself was just an idler in the invincible sect, the kind that needed to pay rent. No one would believe such a thing if he told others. So, they proposed to reopen the Bo Si Immortal Gathering to make Boss Lan unhappy, so that he can fight with Elder I Ching for the position of Bo Si Celestial Emperor. Yu Hong's eyes widened, her face full of disbelief. Lan Hua and Elder I Ching? Those people were too imaginative, weren't they? Let's not talk about how to put together a person who stayed in the cultivation room every day to research all kinds of new spells, and a person who stayed in the kitchen every day to research all kinds of new dishes. To make these two hands-off shopkeepers fight for the position of Celestial Emperor. You must be joking. They would only work together to throw it far away. Okay? Not to mention that Lan Hua was easygoing and open-minded about everything other than cultivation. Elder I Ching never liked to talk to people. It was very difficult for the two to have a conflict. Unless it was for... She turned her head subconsciously and looked at the person who was not nibbling on a fruit, but had a cold face and was quickly tapping something on a light screen. She instantly felt a surge of excitement in her heart. Sect Master is indeed powerful, worthy of being Sect Master, greater than or equal to. Those country emperors are full of schemes and dark thoughts, and think that everyone is like them. Lone Moon laughed coldly, his eyes full of sarcasm. After a while, he turned to look at Yu Hong and said, "Go and reply to them. Just say that we will hold this Bo Si Immortal Gathering on time." Do we have to do it?" Yu Hong was stunned. "Of course." Lone Moon smiled and said, "Don't they want to go? Then we not only have to do it, but we have to do it on a grand scale. Not only do we have to invite the country emperors, but also all the exalted immortals in the Bo Si." Huh. Yu Hong was stunned. But there are hundreds of people with exalted immortal cultivation in the Bo Si. The more, the merrier. Lone Moon's eyes narrowed into a line as he smiled. Don't they like to play tricks? Anyway, we have nothing to do. Let's play with them to our heart's content. Yes. Yu Hong then turned and went out to put up the notice. Although she did not know what Elder Lone Moon wanted to do, she felt that she should light a candle for the country emperors in advance. Chapter 408. All right, chef. Lone Moon thought of something and turned to look at I Ching, who was still shelling. He took out a storage bag and said, "Send these immortal herbs to Lan Hua later and help him refine some supreme-grade Immortal Contest pills." Immortal Contest pill. I Ching was stunned. The Immortal Contest pill could directly raise one's cultivation level, and a supreme-grade Immortal Contest pill could even raise one's cultivation level by a whole realm. However, the conditions to refine it were extremely harsh, not to mention all kinds of rare immortal herbs. The most important thing was that it required a special divine deviant fire to refine it. So even though everyone knew of this pill recipe, no one in the entire immortal world was able to concoct such an immortal pill. Except for Invincible Sect, they did not lack immortal herbs, but deviant fire. What deviant fire could compare to I Ching's true phoenix fire? That was why they could really cultivate it. The disciples of the sect are all body cultivators, so they don't need such pills. Body cultivators cultivated their bodies, and no matter how good the pills were, there would still be impurities left in the body, and there might even be pill toxins. To other immortals, it was nothing, but to body cultivators, it was a huge hindrance to their cultivation. Therefore, other than emergency pills, the sect wouldn't allow its disciples to consume pills that increase their immortal power. It's not for the disciples of the sect. Lone Moon shook his head. Before he could explain, Shanning, who was checking the data beside him, suddenly interrupted. He's preparing to dig a hole for those country emperors. As she tapped on the screen, she said, "Raise the cultivation of the people around them to the same level as them. Let them fight amongst themselves first." To put it simply, Shanning turned and glanced coldly at the other party. He's causing trouble. They came up with this idea themselves. Lone Moon said innocently. He was just giving them a taste of their own medicine. Didn't he want to start a fight between Chef and Lan Hua for the position of emperor? What if someone fought with them for the throne first? At that time, would they still be so free? Lone Moon's eyes darkened. Their invincible sect was not so easily bullied. They didn't know about it before, but now that they had come knocking on their door, he naturally had to get back at them. Shinning frowned and turned to glance thoughtfully at Lone Moon, whose face was full of bad ideas. Sister said that as an assistant, she shouldn't interfere too much with the development of the living beings in the plane. Now that she was the manager, shouldn't she remind them? She needed to reason with them. Oh, she took a deep breath and said in a gentle tone, "Are you an idiot?" Lone Moon didn't feel relief at all. Instead, he felt like he had been stabbed. What? It's completely meaningless for a plane assistant to interfere in a conflict between native life forms. You're different from them. What's there to be proud of bullying a bunch of kids? If that's the case, he should understand, right? Didn't we have a good talk today? Hear it. Lone Moon wanted to spit a mouthful of blood at her face. Why didn't you bring a knife when she said something perfectly fine? I'm doing this once and for all. If I don't resolve this issue now, those monarchs will only make things worse in the future. We can't just watch our disciples get bullied, right? Do you think I care about this? Isn't it all because of you lazy people? Who's the sect leader? Shinning paused. She thought about the girl she met yesterday, who smiled happily at her, and her heart softened. That seemed to make sense. Big Sister didn't seem to say what would be the effect of an assistant interfering in these things. Forget it, whatever. So she looked at Lone Moon again and said seriously, "As long as you're happy." Lone Moon, what's going on? Even more infuriating? This must be sarcasm. It must be. Damn it, don't stop me. I'll go to the papers now. Then I'll go find Lan Hua. Chef suddenly stood up and interrupted their conversation. Father Nyo, other than the Immortal Contest pill, do you want to refine any other pills? Lone Moon then suppressed the anger in his heart. Let Lan Hua do as he sees fit. All right. He suddenly thought of something and looked at Shanning. Where's the dandelion that Radish gave you yesterday? Let Chef bring it to Lan Hua. It can improve the quality of the pills. Shen Ying stiffened. Even her hand that was about to light up the screen stopped. Flowers still have to be taken back. That was the first time she received flowers. Are you a demon? Underscore. Where did you put it? Seeing that she did not speak for a long time, Lone Moon asked again. If that dandelion is not sealed with sorcery, it will lose its effect after a day. Don't want to give it. Not happy. No need. I Ching subconsciously turned and looked at Xuning, who still had a cold expression. I'll just ask Radish for some more. Huh? Xuning looked up in surprise, her eyes widening. Good person. There's ready-made ones. Why make a trip? Lone Moon frowned. You know that Radish only listens to Xuning. Even if you go, he might not give it to you. Huh? Wait, why are you holding a kitchen knife? He'll give it to you, I Ching said seriously. Hee, as long as you're happy. Straight face. I Ching turned to look at his master, who still had a cold expression. He pushed the nuts that he had been peeling for a long time toward her. Master, do you want to eat? Xuning paused. She looked down at the plate full of nuts in front of her. Her expression did not change, but her eyes widened in surprise. A while later, eat. She slowly reached out to pick one up and quickly stuffed it into her mouth. So crispy, so delicious. This is a good person. The corner of I Ching's mouth turned up slightly. Then he turned to look for Lan Hua. Xuning stuffed a few more nuts in her mouth, eating as she turned to look at his retreating figure. Her heart warmed for no reason, but a trace of doubt flashed in her eyes. She felt that this disciple of hers was strange. He seemed to be treating her too well, not like a master and disciple at all. She turned to look at Father Nyo, wanting to clarify, and subconsciously reached out to tug at his hair. Ouch! Lo Moon felt a pain in his scalp and jumped up. Holy shit, why did you suddenly pull my hair so hard? His scalp was about to fall off. Shen Ying's hand froze. What should she do? She pulled the wrong hair. He's going to be angry, right? I pulled your clothes. Her expression did not change. Do you think I'm blind? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Don't hide your hand behind your back if you have the guts. Rubbing his scalp that was hurting, he turned to glare at her and asked, What exactly do you want? I have something to ask you. Xuning looked at the nuts on the table again. That I Ching is really my disciple? If he's not your disciple, is he supposed to be my disciple? Lone Moon rubbed his head and rolled his eyes. Just disciple? Lone Moon finally understood what she meant. He paused and said with some surprise, Holy shit, no way. Didn't I Ching tell you about this? Then were you two playing house last night? Xuning tilted her head. What did he say? Of course he's not just your disciple, he's your boyfriend. With that said, she added, Haven't you met his parents already? Huh? In the next moment, Shen Ying's cold expression, which she had been maintaining very well, cracked. Her face instantly turned red like a ripe tomato. Boyfriend? Meet his parents. My sister. Chapter 409. I Ching felt that Master had been a little strange these few days. Although there seemed to be no change on the surface, she was still that cold look. But he always felt that Master would often look at him out of the corner of her eye. Whether it was cooking, cutting, or washing vegetables, she would always sneak a glance at him. And her expression was very strange. It seemed to be probing, puzzled, inexplicable, and a little misconception of shyness. Master, is there something wrong? I Ching finally couldn't help but ask. The person who was typing on the data at the table stiffened. Her hands paused, and after a while she replied coldly, No. She pretended as if nothing had happened and let out a cold breath. With that said, she turned back and lowered her head to continue typing. Her head was so low that it was almost buried in the light screen in front of her. Only the side of her ear revealed a strange red color. I Ching was stunned and even more puzzled. After thinking for a while, he stepped forward and sat on the chair beside her. He pushed the pastries in his hand in her direction. The pastries this time are more troublesome to make. Is Master blaming me for being too slow and getting hungry after waiting for so long? Pastries. V. Shening was stunned. Then she moved her big round eyes from above the light screen and stared straight at the extra plate of pastries on the table. Her eyes became even rounder and her nose twitched. So fragrant. Is this a new invention? Yes. Master, why don't you help me try it? I Ching moved the plate in her direction again. All right, I'll try it for you. Shenying's expression did not change. Something flashed in her eyes. After a while, she slowly reached out to take a piece and quickly stuffed it into her mouth. In the next moment, her eyes narrowed. So delicious. It's even more delicious than before. This is my first time making this kind of pastries. What do you think, Master? I Ching asked seriously. Shening opened her eyes quickly and glanced at him. Shouldn't she praise him for being so delicious? So she replied coldly, not bad. With that said, she took another piece and stuffed it into her mouth. Then, another piece, seeing that the plate full of pastries was about to be emptied. The corner of I Ching's mouth unconsciously lifted. As long as Master likes it. His gaze instantly became soft like water, as if there was only one person left in the world in front of him. Shening felt a little awkward under his gaze. She tilted her head and glanced at him. Suddenly, she recalled what Lone Moon had said earlier. Her heart skipped a beat, and she couldn't help but blush. Was he really her boyfriend? That was why he was so nice to her. He changed her clothes, changed her blanket, wiped her hands, and stayed by her side. More importantly, he could cook a lot of delicious food that she had never eaten before. She glanced at him again. He was also very handsome. Having a boyfriend like him seemed not bad. Greater than or equal to 4 all. However, Big Sis had said that puppy love was not allowed before the age of 18. No, didn't they say that she had lost her memory due to hibernation and that she was actually 28 years old? Then that shouldn't be considered puppy love, right? And didn't that person called Lone Moon say that they had already met the parents? So Big Sis had agreed. A terrifying face appeared in her mind. She subconsciously shivered. She turned back and scanned I Ching's face from head to toe. She really couldn't help but ask, "You really met my sister? Why do you ask that, Master?" I Ching faltered but still nodded honestly. "Yes, I did." "Then did she do anything to you?" I Ching shook his head. "No, but he did give Father Nyo a beating." "Really?" "No, this doesn't make sense." Shenying's face was full of disbelief. She scanned him again and said seriously, "You're actually still alive? His legs weren't even broken." "Forget it." Shenying decided not to continue thinking about it. She looked at the last 2 pieces of pastries on the table and hesitated for a while. Gritting her teeth, she endured the pain and handed one over. "For you." I Ching faltered. He didn't want to eat it. "Master, I didn't eat." Shenying did not wait for him to finish and directly stuffed it into his mouth. This was for her boyfriend. I Ching didn't pay attention. He subconsciously opened his mouth and felt a soft hand brushing past his lips. His mouth was filled with sweetness. "Master, Master." Only then did he realize something. His whole body froze. His face instantly turned red and his heart beat so fast that it seemed like it was about to jump out. This was the first time Master was like this. His gaze unconsciously followed the other party's hand. Shenying had already picked up the last piece of pastry and stuffed it into her mouth. As she ate, she even licked the pastry crumbs on her fingertips. A moment later, he realized something. He looked down at his own hand and his whole body stiffened. Her hand seemed to have. He subconsciously turned back. Their eyes met. Instantly, they understood something. The next moment, a huge wave of red climbed onto their faces. The air seemed to heat up, as if there were pink bubbles rising. When Lone Moon came in, he saw this scene. They looked at each other affectionately for 10,000 years. For a moment, he seemed to smell the smell of dog food. The corner of his mouth twitched. He could not help but burst the pink bubbles around them. "Hey, have you two seen enough?" They looked at each other for a minute. The two stiffened as if they were shocked. They both turned their heads. One buried his eyes in the light screen, and the other stood up. Father Nyo, what's the matter?" "It's time to go." "Go what?" Lone Moon frowned. He scanned him up and down. "Did you forget that today is the day of the Bow Sea Immortal Gathering? It's getting late." Yu Hong and the others have already gone over early in the morning. I specially came to call you. He looked up at the sky. When Bossland's immortal contest pills are ready, we'll go. As he spoke, Lanhua walked in with a bottle of pills. Here, the pills you wanted. A total of 200 pills. Thank you for your hard work. Lone Moon took the pills from Lanhua's hand. He took out a Dharma artifact and threw it into the air. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge 5-colored spirit bird. As it flapped its wings, layers of auspicious clouds appeared. Immortal chi surrounded it. It was like an illusion, full of showiness. This was a bird that was very suitable to show off. Lone Moon raised his hand and conjured a seal. The spirit bird that the Dharma artifact transformed into flew down instantly. In an instant, it occupied more than half of the yard. Let's go. He waved at them. Oh yes, Boss Lon, you go too. Me? Lan Hua was stunned. Why should I go? He did not need to increase his cultivation. Besides, that immortal spring was useless to the demons. You must go. How could he slap them in the face if he did not go? But I still have an appointment with Brother Radish and Nephew Dandelion to find new immortal herbs today. Since when did Song Ren become your nephew? Do you have to accept it so quickly? Why don't you go? I really don't. 3 years of rent-free. Yes, Father Nyo. No problem, Father Nyo. He changed his words instantly. Lo Moon, I Ching, Shuning. Chapter 410. The three of them mounted their swords and flew onto the bird's back. They saw that there was a lotus platform on the bird's back. It was very wide and could accommodate more than 10 people. Once they got on, the giant bird spread its wings and flew up. Along the way, it was like laying out a carpet, scattering colorful, auspicious clouds and dazzling spirit light. Their appearance had to be shocking. Fortunately, he found this weapon from the warehouse last night. Lone Moon nodded in satisfaction. It was cool enough. It was just that the surroundings were too bright, and it was hard to recognize the way. Chef, look! He was just about to ask the person beside him when he turned to find I Ching standing there in a daze. His eyes glanced at a certain someone beside him, as if he hadn't come back to his senses, his face full of lust. Lo Moon. F*** King retard. He could only look at Lan Hua beside him. Boss Lan, have you been to the Bo Sea Immortal Spring? I've been there a few times. Lan Hua released his divine perception and pointed to the left. Just fly in that direction. It's about a few hundred miles away. We'll be there in a quarter of an hour. Lone Moon changed his hand seal and flew directly in that direction. Shining frowned at the side, as if thinking of something. She opened a light screen and looked. The place you mentioned, is it here? She clicked on her wristband, and instantly a light screen appeared in front of the three of them. On it was a map. It was the terrain of the Bo Sea. She raised her hand and pointed to a red dot on the far left. The place we're going, is it near this marked point? Lan Hua was shocked by the sudden appearance of the map. Thinking of Shun Ying's ability, he didn't think much and looked carefully at the illusory map. He nodded and said, Yes, this is the place where the immortal spring appeared. Shun Ying's frown deepened. What's wrong? Lone Moon asked. What's wrong with this place? Shun Ying turned off the map on the light screen and turned to look at him. 3 days ago, I scanned the data here and received a set of abnormal data signals. I've been trying to determine the specific direction. It can't be there, right? Lone Moon was shocked. Wait, you've been staring at that light screen these few days. You're investigating this? What else can I do? Shun Ying turned and glanced at him coldly. Do you think I'm just fooling around like the rest of you? Can't you speak properly? How am I not doing proper work? And you, a person who eats 5 meals a day, how dare you say such things? What exactly are those abnormalities? Is it an invasion? Do you think invaders are like cabbages in the north? A few dozen kilograms at a time? Shun Ying gave him a look of disdain and explained coldly. My initial guess is that it's just a spatial fold or a fault. It won't have too much of an impact on the plane. We can only be sure when we get there. What? What the hell was that? Don't understand? Shun Ying tilted her head and glanced at the two of them, who were in a daze. This question was indeed a little difficult to understand. Back then, She had also studied for several months. Let me put it this way. They were still newbies. As a manager, she couldn't destroy their confidence. Thus, she took a step forward and said word by word in a friendly tone, "With your almost zero IQ, it's very difficult for me to explain it to you." Lo Moon, I Ching, swish, swish, the two heard the sound of knives stabbing. Today was a good day to be a manager. For all, for all, for all, for all. What exactly are you talking about? Lan Hua, who was at the side, was confused. He looked back and forth between the cold Shun Ying and Lone Moon, who was already on the verge of exploding. Taking a deep breath, Lone Moon suppressed the anger in his heart. As an adult, he couldn't be calculated with children. He turned to look at Lan Hua and patted his shoulder. It's better not to know. Otherwise, he would be angered to death. Lan Hua, Bosi Immortal Gathering. Immortals gathered in the sea of flowers surrounded by immortal chi. There were immortals from various countries of the Bo Sea, and there were also immortals from other continents who had received the news and rushed over to join the fun. After all, the Bo Sea Immortal Gathering was held after more than 3,000 years. It was a rare opportunity. At a glance, all the immortals sitting there had high cultivation levels. The lowest was a Stygian immortal, and most were exalted immortals. Yu Hong looked at the immortals carefully before turning to the disciple beside her. Are all the country emperors here? The country emperor of East Sui hasn't arrived yet, the disciple answered. Yu Hong frowned, and a hint of depression rose in her heart. In the next moment, they heard a bird cry that pierced through the clouds. The originally noisy crowd quieted down and looked up at the sky. They saw a huge spirit bird flying in their direction. Auspicious clouds filled the sky wherever it passed, bringing with it a shocking suppression. Sectmaster is here. Yu Hong was delighted and nodded to the disciple beside her. The disciple immediately turned and shouted, "Sect, Bo Si Celestial Emperor is here." The colorful spirit bird landed, and the country emperors all turned to look. They saw Lan Hua at the front, and then I Ching at the back. Instantly, their faces lit up, and they all looked like they were watching a good show. The four of them walked down from the bird. Only then did the crowd turn and bow to them. "Greetings, Celestial Emperor." The person opposite them did not respond. Lone Moon just waved his hand, and the huge bird turned into a white light, turning back into a Dharma artifact and flying back into his hand. Only then did the four of them walk towards the main seat. The country emperors exchanged a look, and their gazes swept back and forth between Lan Hua and I Ching. Their eyes were full of excitement, especially when they saw the two of them walking towards the main seat. They could not suppress the excitement in their hearts. They did not know if the immortal officials who came to make arrangements first were ignorant, but there was actually only one main seat. The relationship between Lan Hua and that celestial emperor I Ching was very subtle. One was the real Bo Si Celestial Emperor who was elected by all the continent's emperors, and the other was the current Celestial Emperor who had long been in charge of the entire Bo Si. The key was that the two of them appeared at the immortal gathering together. Although the main seat was a small matter, it represented the real position of the Celestial Emperor. Who would sit on it? The more the country emperors thought about it, the more excited they became. They could not wait for the two of them to fight on the spot. Indeed, the two of them walked side by side towards the main seat. Seeing that they were getting closer, the two of them had no intention of turning around and walked all the way to the main stage. It's coming, it's coming. The country emperors subconsciously held their breath and stared at the two of them as they walked straight to the main seat, and then the two of them turned around. Neither of them sat down, one to the left and the other to the right, and walked to the two sides of the chair respectively. And the young female immortal who followed behind the two of them sat on the chair sideways. Perhaps because the chair was too high, she even kicked her legs twice before sitting steadily. She looked up at the people present coldly. The country emperors, the immortals, what the hell? What happened to the big fight that was promised? What happened to the two emperors not getting along? What happened to the saying that two tigers cannot share a mountain? Where did this tigress come from? But the people from the invincible immortal palace looked as if it was a matter of course. including I Ching and Lan Hua. I Ching was already used to standing behind Shining. As for Lan Hua, he had already turned to find Yu Hong, who was beside him, and asked tentatively, "Sister Little Hong, Little Black asked me to ask you, can it get lost?" "Oh." Lan Hua immediately shrank back and silently lit a candle for a certain person who was chased out of his home for a few months. "I try my best, brother." Chapter 411. All the country emperors were stunned by Invincible Heavenly Palace's sudden move. They stared blankly at the person sitting on the main seat, unable to react for a moment. Even when Lone Moon politely asked everyone not to be overly courteous, as well as the large part of the official speech, they did not hear it clearly. They still maintained their bowing posture for a long time. He glanced left and right at Lan Hua and I Ching, then at the person on the main seat. They exchanged glances and were about to ask. The immortal chi in the surroundings suddenly began to thicken. "The immortal spring is about to appear," someone exclaimed. Everyone instantly forgot about the woman's identity and turned to look expectantly at the center of the hall. Even the immortals standing in the middle hurriedly stepped aside. The center of the immortal gathering instantly became empty. The surrounding immortal chi also became thicker and thicker. As though it was being attracted by something, it began to gather towards the center. For a time, the center of the arena was shrouded in white immortal chi, faintly showing signs of materializing. Just as the immortal chi was gathering, a white light suddenly flashed in the middle, like a bolt of lightning streaking across the dense immortal chi. "Huh!" Shining, who was sitting in the main seat with a cold expression, suddenly turned to look at the center and frowned thoughtfully. Just now, the white light only shone for a moment before it disappeared like lightning. In the next moment, the sound of flowing water could be heard. The dense immortal energy finally condensed into water droplets, forming a spiral and gathering in the center. The white mist-like immortal energy in the surroundings also slowly dissipated. In less than the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, a clear spring appeared in the originally empty field. The sparkling spring water reflected the sunlight and seemed to be sprinkled with a layer of gold. Moreover, the entire spring was floating at a height of 1 meter in the middle. Looking from above, one could even see the flowers and plants on the ground. The immortals looked excited, and many of them even subconsciously picked up their cups, waiting for the Sea Emperor to speak and start drinking. One had to know that the immortal spring only appeared once every 100 years. Every time it appeared, it would only appear for an hour. If it was too late, the immortal spring would turn invisible again. Even if they wanted to drink it, they wouldn't be able to. Lone Moon had no intention of making things difficult for them. The immortal spring could indeed increase immortal power, which was very beneficial for cultivation, but could not directly increase one's cultivation. In fact, its effect were not much different from a top-grade spiritual supplement pill, but the latter was a bit more difficult to obtain. So he directly stepped forward and announced loudly, "Those who come are guests. Since you're already here, there is no need to stand on ceremony." As he spoke, he immediately cast a water manipulation art. In the next moment, the water in the spring transformed into hundreds of streams that flew into the cups of the various immortals. "Fellow immortals, please." Only then did everyone stand up and return the greeting. "Thank you, your majesty. May I know which sovereign emperor is this immortal official using to invite everyone to the spring?" Suddenly, a sarcastic voice rang out, and a cyan-robed man flew down from the sky. Behind him were tens of ascendant immortals. When he landed, he did not look at the platform. Instead, he looked at the various country emperors and said, "Fellow country emperors, you have arrived early. I did not know that the returning imperial monarch you fellows were talking about would be so impatient. To think that he would not even wait for everyone to arrive before he started drinking the spring water." Shining frowned and turned to look at Chef beside her. "Who is this idiot who looks like he's here to cause trouble and whose face is filled with the word cannon fodder?" I Ching was stunned by the long list of adjectives. He replied in a low voice, "Master, this person should be the emperor of East Sui, Yutsong. I heard that he only became a young emperor 1,000 years ago." Oh, Shining glanced at him and lost interest. Lomun's eyes narrowed. Finally, they were going to start trouble. "Young Emperor Yu, what are you talking about?" Another country emperor at the side scolded loudly, but there was not much anger in his expression. "This Bo Si immortal gathering. We are here to congratulate Emperor I Ching on his return to the throne. You shouldn't have come late. How can you talk nonsense?" "What Emperor I Ching?" He snorted and glared at everyone disdainfully. "I only know that our Bo Si has Emperor Lan Hua. Since when did we have another Emperor I Ching?" The country emperor who retorted looked angry and shouted even louder, "How dare you! Emperor I Ching has already taken over Bo Si 3,000 years ago. He is the rightful emperor of Bo Si. This country emperor has already said that that happened 3,000 years ago. I have only taken over East Sui for 1,000 years. That's why I only know Emperor Lan Hua and not this Emperor I Ching. Don't forget, who was it who fought against the demons and guarded the immortal and demonic realms for the past 1,000 years? As for that Emperor I Ching, I don't know what he has done. I will never acknowledge such a person." The country emperors fell silent. They all looked angry but helpless to refute. Lone Moon looked back and forth between the two groups of people and did not interrupt. One played the bad cop, the others played the good cop. The division of labor was quite clear. Emperor Lan Hua, the one called Yutsong, had already walked straight towards Lan Hua. He cupped his fists and said with a face full of loyalty and determination, "Don't worry. Even if I have to sacrifice this life of mine, I will never acknowledge any returning emperor." "Huh?" Lan Hua, who was hesitating on how to persuade Yu Hong and was not listening at all, paused. "What did you say?" "Monarch," Yutsong said even more solemnly. "This Bo Si is yours. You deserve the position of monarch." As he spoke, he turned to look at the main seat and pointed there. "This person who popped out of nowhere is completely unworthy." Halfway through his words, he suddenly stopped. He looked at the cold-faced woman sitting high up on the main seat and could not react for a long while. "Who is this? Didn't they say that Emperor I Ching was a man?" This was different from the shadow recording stone. He subconsciously turned to look at the other country emperors. What was going on? This was different from what they had agreed on. How was he supposed to continue singing? The other country emperors were all confused. They did not even have time to ask. Lan Hua, who came back to his senses, finally understood what he meant. Was he asking him to fight for the seat with good heart? He immediately jumped up. "Hey, don't talk nonsense. Who wants to sit in that seat? I have never thought of sitting. I like to stand. I was born to like to stand. What can you do about it?" Asking Good Heart to give up her seat for him, that would be terrible. "Are you trying to make me go bankrupt? I'll kill you." In the next moment, he felt Lan Hua's murderous aura coming towards him. Yutsong was shocked and stunned. For a moment, he did not know what he meant, but he had to continue acting according to the script. He said in a low voice, "Emperor, you have been managing the Bo Si for so many years. Are you really willing to hand over thousands of years of hard work to someone else?" "Wait, who said that I was managing the Bo Si in the past?" Lan Hua looked at him as if he was looking at a retard. He scanned the person in front of him from head to toe. "I have never managed it. He was just a lodger." Yutsong, all the country emperors, what? What was going on? Had they seen a ghost in these thousands of years? Chapter 412. The country emperors were confused. The one in charge was not Emperor Lan Hua. Could it be? For a moment, all eyes turned to look at I Ching on the right. I Ching frowned and replied, "It's not my business." Everyone was even more confused. Someone asked subconsciously, "If the two emperors are not in charge, then who is it?" Lan Hua and I Ching exchanged a look, and in the next moment, all the Invincible Sect disciples answered in unison, "It's Father Nyo." "Huh? Everyone, what the hell? Who is Father Nyo?" "I am." Lone Moon stepped forward and smiled like a sunflower at everyone. The immortals were stunned, but the country emperors recognized that this person seemed to be the original elder of Invincible Sect, young Emperor Lone Moon. On the day I Ching became emperor, he was the one in charge. But Yu Tsang did not recognize him. His eyes turned, and he scolded, "Ridiculous! Who are you? Our Bo-Si is also one of the great 10 continents. How can we let a mere young emperor be in charge?" "Is that so?" Lone Moon could not be bothered to watch them continue. He adjusted his cultivation and directly released his suppressive force. In the next moment, everyone felt their bodies become heavy. An overwhelming and terrifying suppressive force swept over. Not to mention the other immortals. Even the country emperors felt their blood boiling, their minds unsteady. They instantly had the urge to bow down and worship. They could not muster any thoughts of resistance. Especially Yu Tsang, who was the closest. He was directly pressed down to his knees with a thud. His entire body was almost pressed down and rubbed against the ground. Cold sweat instantly covered his entire body. His heart was filled with shock, and boundless fear immediately swept over him. This terrifying suppressive force was definitely not just from Celestial Emperor. Who exactly was he? "It seems like Country Emperor, you have some opinions about me?" Lone Moon's smile deepened. Yu Tsang's face became even paler. He felt his blood boiling, as if he would be crushed under this terrifying suppressive force in the next moment. He immediately replied in a panic, "No, no, I don't dare." All the country emperors turned pale. They suddenly recalled the day more than 3,000 years ago when the country emperors of the 10 continents besieged Invincible Sect. Suddenly, a chasm that almost severed the entire celestial realm appeared. To this day, no one knew who did it. Over the years, there had been some speculations on the various continents. At that time, the Invincible Sect might have been hiding a person that even the Celestial Emperors could not afford to offend. This was also why after the Invincible Sect took over the Bo-Si, even though the Celestial Emperor had disappeared for thousands of years, the other mainlands did not dare to have any designs on them. From the looks of it now, could it be that the person who drove the immortals away and drew the heavenly chasm was this person who seemed to be only a young emperor? Was that why Emperor Lan Hua denied it so quickly when Yu Tsang challenged him? Because he and Emperor I Ching had never been the ones to make decisions. The one who actually controlled the Bo-Si continent was Lone Moon. The more the country emperors thought about it, the more terrified they became. Their faces turned pale, and it was unknown whether it was because of the pressure or because they were frightened by their own imaginations, but cold sweat poured down their faces. Of course, Lone Moon did not know that these country emperors' brains had gone to the sky. The pressure swept across the entire place, and when it was sufficient, he retracted it. Ever since he became an assistant, he felt that cultivation was not a problem. If he wanted to become a god, he could become a god. If he wanted to become an immortal, he could become an immortal. There was no pressure at all in advancing. Forget it. Fellow immortals, don't forget that this trip is to participate in the immortal gathering and drink the immortal spring together. This immortal spring will disappear in an hour. Don't forget what we're here for. Lone Moon twirled the flute in his hand and turned to look at Yu Tsang, who was closest to him. "Country Emperor Yu, don't you agree?" Yu Tsang did not dare to retort. He was really frightened by the pressure just now, and had long lost his arrogant look. Even though the pressure was not there, he still felt his legs turn to jelly. He hurriedly cupped his fists and said, Yes, fellow immortal is right. I also know that everyone is wholeheartedly thinking about the Bo-Si. That's why you're so concerned about the position of the Celestial Emperor." Lone Moon scanned the crowd and said earnestly, "But it's just a title after all. We've never taken it to heart. For us immortal cultivators, working hard to improve our cultivation is the right path." Everyone broke out in a cold sweat and praised him. "Don't worry. Lan Hua and I Ching are all concerned about the immortals of the Bo-Si." Lone Moon's eyes narrowed as he continued. "That's why we invited all immortals today to reconvene the Bo-Si immortal gathering and drink the immortal spring together to improve our cultivation." And the Celestial Emperor considered that the immortal gathering had been suspended for many years and missed a good opportunity. So he had long found a way to compensate everyone. As he spoke, he directly took out a bottle and opened it. Instantly, a few beams of light flashed and a dozen elixirs flew out. They spun in the air as if they were alive and floated in front of him. The elixir was faintly glowing with a faint gold color. A refreshing elixir fragrance wafted over. All the immortals present were energized. The surrounding immortal chi was unimaginably thick. Even the water in the immortal spring was surging. "This is the immortal contest elixir," someone exclaimed. The entire place was instantly in an uproar. It really is the immortal contest elixir. Only the immortal contest elixir has such thick immortal chi. Isn't it impossible to refine this elixir without a divine-grade deviant fire? I didn't expect that there are still immortal contest elixirs left in this world, and a dozen of them. Lone Moon glanced at everyone with satisfaction. In these few thousand years that Celestial Emperor I Ching left, he had a fortuitous encounter and obtained a few immortal contest elixirs. Just tried to take advantage of this immortal gathering to give them to all the immortals. As soon as he finished, everyone's eyes began to shine. How could they still remember to sow discord? They stared straight at those elixirs, unable to move their eyes away. But Lone Moon's tone changed. The quality of these elixirs is average. If they're used by those below Young Emperor, they can directly raise their cultivation by one big realm. A big realm. All the immortals took a deep breath, their eyes even brighter. Instead, it was the 15 country emperors whose expressions changed. Instantly, they had a bad premonition. Indeed, they only heard him continue. The number of these elixirs is limited. There are only 15. Coincidentally, there are 15 countries in my Bo Sea. To show fairness, may the country emperors please choose one person each to receive this elixir. Lone Moon's eyes curved into crescents as he suddenly thought of something and added, "Oh, that's right. It's best to take this elixir directly with the immortal spring water. The effects will be the best." As soon as he said that, the immortals of the other continents were naturally envious, hating that they were not from the Bo Sea, while the exalted immortals brought by the emperors of the various countries were excited. He had just said that it would only be useful for cultivators below the young emperor level, which meant that the pill would eventually fall into their hands. This was a pill that could raise one's cultivation level by a whole level, and anyone who consumed it would become an emperor. Who wouldn't be tempted? On the other hand, the faces of the various country emperors darkened. They instantly understood what he meant and could not help but want to vomit blood. It was true that the immortal contest pill could directly increase one's cultivation level, but it was not something that only exalted immortals could use. However, it was not as obvious for young emperors and above. He purposely made it clear that it was for the exalted immortals to use, because he did not want to give it to them directly. However, they couldn't openly refute that the monarch could use it as well. Otherwise, it would seem like they were greedy. In addition, their purpose for coming here was to provoke the two imperial monarchs. In order to prevent any accidents from happening, each of them brought at least 10 ascendant immortals with them. And this immortal contest pill was only one for each country emperor. Who should they give it to? This was not an ordinary elixir, but one that could raise one's cultivation level directly. Who wouldn't be jealous? In addition, those who could cultivate to the level of exalted immortals would more or less have some power behind them. Giving it to anyone would cause others to be unhappy. Moreover, the other party had clearly pointed out that it had to be taken with the immortal spring water. Wasn't this telling them that they had to eat it now? He did not give them the slightest chance to bring it back and manipulate it internally. Chapter 413. Have all the country emperors made up their minds? Lone Moon grinned like a fox. Watching the commotion unfold, he urged, "This immortal spring is about to disappear. Everyone, if you've thought it through, let your disciples collect the elixirs. Why don't we start with country emperor Yu?" He turned to look at the person closest to him. Yu Tsang, who was suddenly named, stiffened, but could not say no. He resisted the urge to vomit blood and turned to look at the people behind him. He clenched his fists and pointed at the person on his right. You go. Indeed, the other's eyes darkened. With Yutsong taking the lead, the other country emperors also chose an exalted immortal. In a short while, 15 people were chosen. The atmosphere changed instantly. Apart from the 15 excited immortals in front, the other exalted immortals all looked disappointed, regretful, or resentful. Lone Moon turned his hand and cast a water manipulation spell. 15 streams of water flew out of the immortal spring and wrapped around the 15 elixirs. They flew in front of everyone. Their eyes lit up. They caught the elixirs with both hands and swallowed them. The elixirs need 3 days to fully take effect. Everyone, remember to go into seclusion first. Everyone nodded in unison. The looks in the audience's eyes changed completely. There was even a polite, exalted immortal who stepped forward and bowed deeply in the direction of Lone Moon and I Ching. Thank you, Celestial Emperor. Thank you, fellow immortal Father Nyo. Once he said that, the others seemed to be enlightened and bowed in unison. Thank you, Celestial Emperor. Thank you, fellow immortal Father Nyo. 14 Lone Moon, I Ching, shunning, invincible sect people. Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He gritted his teeth and said, My down name is Lone Moon. Scram, how dare you call me Father Nyo? Fu *K. Everyone could only change their words and thank him again. The elixirs were finished. The country emperors did not have the mood to stay any longer, especially Yutsong. He stood up and left before the immortal spring disappeared. The other country emperors also stood up and hurried back with their people. They were probably rushing back to appease the exalted immortals who did not get the elixirs to prevent them from rebelling. Lone Moon did not stay either. He let them go. Soon, they would discover that the ones they really needed to guard against were not those who didn't take the pills, but those who did. The countries of the Bow Sea would probably be in chaos for a while. Do you know about the struggle for the throne? 0. An hour later, the immortal spring had completely disappeared. Only Invincible Sect, the organizer, was left in the entire venue. Lone Moon turned and told everyone to pack up and go home. Shunning, let's go back. You want to get off work without even finishing your work? Shunning turned to look at him. Suddenly, she kicked her legs and jumped down. He walked straight to the center of the field, circled around the spot where the immortal spring had just appeared, and said in a low voice, This is just the beginning. What do you mean? Lone Moon paused. Master, did you discover something? I Ching could not help but ask. Shunning looked at them with a strange expression. A moment later, she moved her lips. She seemed to hesitate for a moment before saying, Have your 5 senses been dispelled? Didn't you feel anything strange just now? The two of them felt suffocated. They tried their best to deceive the dagger in her words. You're saying that there's something wrong with the immortal spring? Half. Shunning frowned and said, There's no problem at the back, but during the process of its formation, there was a moment of spatial chaos. I'm not sure of the exact reason. I don't have enough power now, so quickly go back to the time when it was just formed. I want to confirm it again. What? Lone Moon was stunned. Go back to what? Of course it's the time. Shunning paused. She turned and scanned them from head to toe. You don't know how? The two of them exchanged a look and shook their heads. Then, spatial reconstruction. What's that? Bending restoration? What restoration? Partial resetting, right? Huh. Shun Ying's expression instantly froze. She suddenly felt that these two assistants of hers were seriously lacking in basic knowledge. They were indeed pure novices. Thinking back, she had to train for a long time before she knew these things. She had to motivate them to learn. She stepped forward and said word by word, What use do I have you? Lone Moon, I Ching, heart-piercing too. 0-inch master. Apart from the methods you mentioned just now, are there any other ways to find out the reason? I Ching stepped forward and asked seriously. Shunning glanced at him. As if thinking of something, she subconsciously looked away and said, I just felt something strange just now. I can't be sure unless I look again. Look again. I Ching seemed to have thought of something. His eyes widened. He exchanged a look with Lone Moon beside him and said in unison, "Illusion spell." Lone Moon immediately activated his immortal chi to cast the spell. In an instant, the scenery around them rippled like water. Suddenly, a series of illusions appeared around them. It was exactly the scene from an hour ago. The illusion spell was originally a detection spell. It gathered the remnant aura around them and used the form of an illusion to see what happened before. If they did not deliberately hide it, everything that happened within 3 days would appear. The image of the immortal spring just now reappeared beside the three of them. In order to see it more clearly, Lone Moon set up an array and turned the center into an illusion. Instantly, the scene before them became clearer. It was like what was happening right now. In the illusion, large amounts of immortal chi gathered towards the center, forming a large white fog. Shuning hurriedly opened the light screen and began to operate it. Immediately, a large amount of data flashed across the screen. The immortal chi also became thicker and thicker. Because they were standing in the center, their bodies were already covered in white. Just as it was about to form, that familiar white light flashed again. The immortal chi turned into a spring. "Found it. It's this," Shun Ing suddenly said. Lone Moon retracted the spell and removed the spells around them. "What's going on?" Shun Ing tapped on the light screen. Immediately, it enlarged in front of the two of them. There was a picture on it. It was the scene where the white light appeared just now. The light looked like lightning and appeared right in the center. But on closer inspection, they could see a faint blue color in the middle of the white light. What was this? A crack in the fault of the realm. Shining explained. At that moment, an internal transportation passage was opened here. Internal? Lone Moon hesitated. Internal transportation passage. Wasn't that the realm gate? He was shocked. He turned to look at Chef beside him. The same thought flashed across their minds. Chef, search for the aura of the immortal spring just now. Open the realm gate that connects here again. I Ching nodded. He closed his eyes and conjured a seal with both hands. Immediately, an array appeared beneath his feet. In a short while, the space in front of the three of them twisted. A crack appeared and slowly opened. Instantly, large amounts of chaotic aura surged out from inside. There was immortal chi and spirit chi. The three of them were shocked. They stared straight at the realm gate. Compared to the previous realm gates that connected to the mortal and divine realms, which were either white or black, the light in this realm gate was actually blue. Which realm did this lead to? Chapter 414. What's going on? Why are there two types of immortal and spirit chi in this realm gate? Lone Moon looked confused. Suddenly, he thought of something and his eyes widened. It can't be the same as the other realm, right? The small world that trapped Meng Hong and the rest was a realm where both immortal and spirit chi existed. I don't think so. I Ching sensed the spirit chi in the realm gate and said in a low voice, "This immortal chi is very weak. It should be from the formation of the immortal spring. There shouldn't be any immortal chi in the small world outside this realm gate." Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief, then frowned. No matter what, it must be a trap left behind by the God Fiend. There might be something waiting for us there. He activated his assistant seal and then used a spell to investigate, only to find that the immortal chi disappeared the moment it entered the gate. There was no way of knowing where it led to. How can this be? He looked shocked. I can't find out which small world this realm gate is from. Chef, did you find anything strange when you opened the gate? I Ching shook his head. No, it was the same as when other realm gates opened. Then what did this lead to? It seems like we can only find out where it leads to if we go in. Lone Moon took another look at the realm gate in front of him. His expression darkened. He glanced at Shun Ing worriedly. Shining, are you coming with us? Although this is not as serious as a plane invasion, your powers have not recovered yet. Shining turned back to look at him. Was he worried about her? He was a qualified assistant. He deserved to be encouraged. With your kindergarten-level IQ, You have so much confidence. Do you think I'm as stupid as you and can't protect myself? Don't worry, I'll protect you. For all, Longmun, I Ching, just go along. Why did you have to stab me? The two of them frowned. They would get used to stabbing people in the back after a while. On the other side, Yu Hong and the disciples had already packed up. Sect Master, Elder, we're done. What's that? Yu Hong looked at the realm gate that suddenly appeared in the middle of them in surprise, but did not ask. Sect Master had her reasons for doing things anyway. Are we going back to the Heavenly Palace now? It's all right. Yu Hong, bring the disciples back with Lanhua. Lone Moon handed over the Dharma artifact of the flamboyant rainbow bird and said, We still have some matters to attend to. We will catch up with you as soon as possible. Yes. Yu Hong nodded and took the Dharma artifact without hesitation. She led the disciples up the bird's back and flew away. Come back soon. Boss Lon also waved at them and continued to persevere as he moved closer to Yu Hong to put in a good word for her. Well, after all, he had received a lot of refining materials from Little Black. Little Red, why don't you see Little Black once? Just once? Get lost. One more word, and I'll kick you off the bird. Low-level tenant of Invincible Sect, Lon. Let's go. Lone Moon waved his hand and looked at the master and disciple who were nearer to the realm gate. He instructed, Chef, hold him tight. Don't lose it again. I Ching suddenly thought of a certain person's dark history. He nodded and turned to hold the hand of the person beside him out of habit. Master, be careful. Shening stiffened. She felt a warmth in her palms. A familiar warmth entered her palms and went straight to the bottom of her heart. Even her face seemed to heat up. Was this holding hands? It's unnecessary. It was very, very normal for a boyfriend and girlfriend to hold hands. She was not confused at all. Oh, ***. Oh, all right, let's hurry up and go. Lone Moon urged them again and set up a defensive array around the three of them. If it is really, as Shun-Ing said, and the Immortal Springs data is abnormal, there must be something wrong with this small world. As he conjured a seal, he added, Let's hope this time won't be like the last time when Shun-Ing went into hibernation again. With that, Shun-Ing, who was about to step into the realm gate, suddenly froze. She stopped a step away from the realm gate and pulled I Ching, who was beside her. Lone Moon, who was behind her, did not stop in time and almost bumped into her. Holy shit, why did you suddenly stop? Shenying's expression remained cold. She turned to look at the people behind her. We're not going. Huh? It was not just Lone Moon, even I Ching was stunned. Why? Did she have to drop the ball at the last minute? Master, did you notice anything strange? Lone Moon's heart tightened. He could not help but feel nervous. What did you discover? Shenying's frown deepened. She looked like she did not know what to say. Her assistant was very inquisitive. She should convince them properly. Because she took a deep breath and looked at Father Nyo with a serious expression that she had never shown before. You just helped me set up a flag that I will die if I go out, so I've decided not to go. Lone Moon, I Ching, what kind of stupid reason was that? Did she have to be so childish? Shening had already brought up the light screen. She quickly clicked a few times, and the interface immediately closed. Be it in movies or dramas, the main character always died this way. Cherish your life and stay away from flags. Wait, didn't you say that there's a problem with the data? Lone Moon felt full of grievance. He was wrong. This Shun-Ing who released the poison was even more unreliable than the lazy one before. If we don't go, how do we know what's wrong there? Shun-Ing looked up. This was a good question. As a manager, it was time to let the newbies understand the diversity of problem solving. Who said we can't investigate if we don't go? She still said coldly. Even if you don't have knowledge, you have to have some common sense. Even if you don't have common sense, please keep some memory. Use your tiny brains to think carefully. What's the correct process of monitoring a small world? What the hell was the correct process? The two of them paused. They suddenly thought of something. No wonder it was the divine realm. There's medicine to cure your stupidity. Shening nodded. She always praised her subordinates. That's right. If they just wanted to find out which small world this special realm gate led to, they could just go to the divine realm and take a look. Let's go back. Lone Moon immediately cut through the void and opened a passage to the divine realm. In an instant, the three of them were already under the vast starry sky. Lone Moon turned and scanned the densely packed starry sky. Shining, quickly find out which small world it is. Shining was just about to bring up the light screen. She thought of something and turned to look at the two of them. You can't find it? Isn't this to save time? Lone Moon waved the wristband. I'm not as familiar with this wristband as you are. What's more, this is your divine realm. Who said we have to use this wristband to find it? Shining looked at the two of them in surprise. This is technology from another plane. It has nothing to do with this world. I'm only using it because I'm used to it. You don't even... She stopped mid-sentence. She suddenly understood something. She looked at the two of them. Don't tell me. You don't know what assistant authority is at all. What? Chapter 415. What do you mean? Lone Moon hesitated. Wasn't assistant authority a cheat? He could adjust his cultivation at will and was not restricted by the rules. Shen Ying's expression became even more strange. She scanned the two of them from head to toe. After a moment of silence, she said, let's put it this way. She turned and pointed at the 3,000 worlds in front of them. What do you see? Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look. After a while, they replied, the galaxy? Shen Ying's eyes widened and her expression turned even colder. She looked like she wanted to expel them. A moment later, she sighed and shook her head. I thought you could be saved, but you really are blind. What should they do? It turned out that it wasn't that her assistant had a poor foundation, but that she had no foundation at all. Sigh, it's so tough. The two of them, didn't you say that this starry sky is the three realms, the original appearance of this plane? Lone Moon could not help but ask. You can indeed see the entire plane from here. Shining frowned and thought for a while before saying in a low voice, but who said that this plane originally looked like this? Isn't it? The more they listened, the more confused they became. Lone Moon stepped forward and said, weren't you the one who turned the divine realm into this? I transformed the plane into the starry sky out of habit. Shining pulled out a star chart of the previous plane and explained, the appearance is similar, it's just convenient to manage. But this is the immortal spirit plane, it's fundamentally different from our original place. The principle was similar, but there would always be differences, and it would not always be suitable. Besides, you're my assistants, so you have authority over this place. You don't have to follow my habits. You mean to say? Lone Moon was a little confused. He waved his hand. This bracelet is actually not that useful. It has nothing to do with our assistant's abilities. Shining nodded. This is a product from another plane. Its influence on the border is limited. Lone Moon flips table. Degree, why didn't you tell me earlier? I've been reading the instruction manual for months. Wait, he suddenly thought of something. Then why was it able to detect intruders before? And haven't you been using it all the time? And the band-aid you gave us to repair the plane also successfully repaired the plane crack. What band-aid? This is just a support item. Shining shook her wristband. It can only carry out simple data monitoring and calculations. It has no direct impact on this world. The only ones who can really change the plane are the managers and assistants themselves. Master is saying, I Ching seemed to have figured something out. He stepped forward and said, what could repair the plane crack back then was actually our own power. Yes. Shining nodded. Every plane is actually different. It's just that the manager is the plane itself, and the assistant maintains the plane stability. In other words, you have the ability to control the entire plane. It's just that the method of operation is different. My sister's plane can rely on technology, but this plane, a spell. I Ching continued. What Master means is that all problems can be solved with sorcery. Lone Moon was stunned. He suddenly recalled that when they were investigating the immortal spring just now, she said a bunch of terms that he did not understand. But in the end, they were the ones who used the illusory technique to find out. It was the same effect, but the method could be different. Shining turned around with some appreciation. He was indeed her boyfriend. Full marks for understanding. He was indeed outstanding. He needed to be praised. Greater than over equal to Looks like the water in your brains has finally dried. I Ching, Lone Moon. The corners of their mouths twitched. They exchanged a look at each other, then turned to look at the starry sky. Indeed, compared to the complicated operation of the wristband, sorcery was much easier for them. But, in such a huge plane, even if we use the detection sorcery, it's impossible to immediately find that small world with the special realm gate, Lone Moon said with a frown. There's so many sorcery in these 3 realms, but none of them can be so fast. We can't just go and learn at the last minute. He stopped in the middle of a sentence. Wait. Speaking of which, the so-called sorcery was originally created by primordial chaos and Godfiend, according to the rules of the plane. And the assistant was already a person who had already broken away from the rules. As long as he understood the rules themselves, which was the heavenly Tao of this world, it was not impossible for him to create a never-before-seen sorcery. His heart jumped. He turned back to look at Chef. Both their eyes lit up. Obviously, they had also thought of this. Try it. Yes. I Ching nodded. The 2 of them took a step forward, closed their eyes, and released their divine perception. They scanned the starry sky in front of them. Instantly, the 2 of them felt like they were in an ocean. Wherever their divine perception reached, it was vast and boundless, as if it could not be reached at all. The 2 of them released their divine perception to the limit, but still could not reach the stars in the starry sky. It was as if it was far beyond their reach, far beyond the reach of their divine perception. In a short while, their foreheads were already covered in sweat. They looked like they were in pain. Are you guys surnamed Donkey? Shening suddenly spoke. Have you forgotten who you are? The 2 of them paused. Only then did they remember the assistant seal in their bodies. They directly sensed for a moment. Almost instantly, their divine perception, which was a little difficult to extend, instantly spread out like a net, covering the entire starry sky. The originally vast and boundless 3,000 realms seemed to have suddenly shrunk. They could see everything clearly. One by one, the small worlds were incomparably clear, flashing in front of their eyes. What was amazing was that these small worlds were not like the transparent spheres when Shening controlled them. Instead, each and every one of them had different shapes and appearances. Taking a closer look between the worlds, they were not independent. Instead, there seemed to be some kind of connection. They subconsciously followed that connection to see the entire 3 realms. The plane also became clearer and clearer. In the next moment, the entire divine realm also changed. Large patches of golden light shone out from the darkness. The originally scattered starlight began to gather. Thin golden lines began to connect the various small worlds, and all of them converged downwards. Only then did Lone Moon and I Ching open their eyes. They were directly shocked by the shining golden scene in front of them. This is the true appearance of this plane, Shening explained. The 2 of them were stunned. They exchanged a look, then looked at the scene in front of them again. It was a huge tree, a huge golden tree. The tree was shining with a dazzling golden light, extending endlessly in all directions as if it covered the sky and covered the sun. Between the leaves were densely packed, and each leaf was a small world. This was their plane? As for how to find that small world just now, Shening turned and glanced at the 2 of them. She said coldly, "You don't need me to teach you anymore, do you?" She was indeed a qualified teacher, just a little better than Big Sister. Why? Amazed face. Why, let me find it. Lone Moon was still in shock from the fact that the entire plane was in front of him. What's more, in that instant, countless rules surged into his mind. It was as if he had memorized an encyclopedia. He understood all the rules and laws of the plane instantly. Not only did he understand them completely, but he could even adjust them. Everything was under his control. This way, finding the small world where the immortal spring was just now would be a piece of cake. So he took a step forward and went under the tree. I Ching, on the other hand, turned and returned to Shenying's side. He took out a plate of pastries and handed it to her. "Master, you've been busy for so long. Do you want some pastries to fill your stomach? This is new too. I wonder if Master likes it." Pastries. V. Shenying's eyes lit up, but her expression did not change. She glanced at the pastries in his hand. After a while, she said, "All right, I'll help you try it." She did not want to eat it at all. Carrot. I Ching's expression became even warmer. He smiled faintly. "Your disciple understands." "Thank you, master." Only then did she take it. With a serious expression, she stuffed one piece after another into her mouth, like a happy little hamster. "Found it." In less than the time it took to eat a piece of pastry, Lone Moon exclaimed in joy. In the next instant, his voice deepened. How can this be? What small world was this?" You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.